Dear home, we need a change. We need HomeSense, where one bold piece can change your whole place. Want a new dining set? Chic throw pillows? Game-changing savings mean the answer is yes. HomeSense. This changes everything.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net. From Asmik Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Unregimented number 215. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm Rich.
I don't think I've ever been so relieved that Congress is going to just be a stalemate for the next few months. But,
yeah.
Hey. Country showing some signs of sanity down in Alabama yesterday. Well,
yeah,
I was posted 2 or 3 days ago.
I was watching the results live, and I don't know. This is an insane race. This was a nail biter if you're following it live. I mean, it was
which is insane.
Bouncing back and forth between half percentage points of like Doug Jones is down half, and then Roy Moore nudges up another half percentage point. I mean, luckily the margin got over a half percentage point, or else we'd definitely be looking at a recount, and we still wouldn't have an answer.
Was part of this race, and it was a nail biter.
Well, I mean, consider this.
What the fuck is going on?
It was. Roy Moore didn't think there was any chance that he could lose. Once he got the Republican nomination for that seat, I mean, this is an area where a lot of times Democrats just don't even bother running because the Republicans are cleaning up with 70+% of the vote.
Yeah, kind of like the mayoral race in Detroit. What Republican candidate can we remember running that had a shot?
Yeah,
wasn't Tom Barrow a Republican?
I don't even remember who the fuck I don't even know who the fuck you are. But no, I don't remember who he is, to be honest with you. I know that they'll run run multiple candidates from the Democrats, but also you gotta remember, Chris, when you say like, how is it this close? The guy's a fucking pedophile, blah blah blah, whatever. Man, we live in a part of the country where it's just like abortion is just accepted.
Right.
And even people who are pro birth tend to be like, well, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the aborted fetus. And that's just all there is to it. You go down south, that shit does not play with a lot of people. That is murder. Mm-hmm. That is, you might as well go in and Menendez both your parents. If you had if you were party to or perform abortions, that is they consider you a murderer. Period.
Dog don't hunt.
It's not a joke to consider that even if Roy Moore was touching kids, at least he was loving them and not murdering them like some Democrats. Like that is their mindset.
On an AP story on him losing, one of his supporters posted, "Congratulations, Alabama. You rather have someone who would kill children than show affection to them." He posted that on an Associated Press link.
Yeah, goddamn. Well,
wow.
NPR was fascinated with this story and was trying to figure out how can there still be support for Roy Moore in Alabama, and they did stories where they'd go down and talk to Alabamians. Is that what it is, Alabamian?
Sure.
And I mean, this is my short version of how the interview went. How can you still support Judge Roy Moore? Well, the other guy's for abortion, so it's no contest. And then they go, well, there you go, folks. We still have no idea how these people can still support him. Like, they're flat out listing abortion as the top issue for why they've always voted Republican. And. Yep. And we're still looking around for answers. Like because to the rest of the nation, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, there's also it's also just the fact that I mean, the religious people, the Christians down south, are a breed of their own. And until you've lived with them, dealt with them, whether they're family members or you dated a girl and her family was, a bunch of Southern Christians, you don't understand. That shit is so serious to them. I mean, it is the single deciding factor in all their politics. And maybe that's why I have such a disdain for it. And I consider, like, the more deeply religious someone is, the more mentally ill they are, because I don't know how else to describe it. And to me, calling them mentally ill is being as polite as it's going to get, because otherwise they're just fucked up people. I mean, and they use this, whatever religion they call themselves, First Baptist, Southern Baptist, doesn't matter. And they use it as an excuse to basically, hey, I'm going to vote this way. I don't care if this means these people get fucked over or these people's rights are taken away. It doesn't matter to me. This person said he's a Christian. Right. And I mean, it's also funny. Something I've noticed down south is any Republican that stands up, I don't care if he's gotten caught fucking men, fucking children, smoking fucking meth while doing all that. If a Republican stands up and says, I'm a Christian, it is unanimously believed. It goes unchallenged with his supporters, even undecided voters or independents. Yet if a Democrat stands up and says, I'm a Christian, they start trying their best to poke holes. Really? You're a Christian? Well, you were out campaigning this one Sunday. You weren't in church. That's not what Christians do.
Yeah, all of a sudden they get out the yardstick and find out how Christian.
Exactly.
Where before, I mean, there's others that can just use it as a general shield of, even if I behaved badly, I'm a Christian at my core, so when I was behaving badly, I was just a lapsed Christian, and now I'm coming back into the fold, back under the protection of this reality that we've made for ourselves, where
I think that
where people who perform abortions are lower on the societal rung than pedophiles.
Well, I think that's why when I was younger, I was so fascinated by like Catholicism, because I was born here in Michigan, but I raised and spent a lot of time all over the country, but never really ran into any Catholics. So all my experience with religion was like the damn near like insanely devout types. And then I started meeting, like a lot more Catholics and stuff like that. And it was just like, wow, you guys have just kind of I go to church on the major holidays, and, I go to confession, a couple times a year, and, that's it. I don't, that's about it. And I'm like, wow, that's really, it doesn't color every single thing of your life.
Right,
and
they didn't realize it didn't have to be an all or nothing proposition.
Well, on top of that, I just also didn't realize that there were religious people who, like, this is another thing. The religion that most of my family comes from, like, drinking, even in moderation, is seen as, nope, that's a no-go. And there's certain parts of my family where women aren't allowed to wear pants, slacks, shorts. It's always got to be skirts. It always has to be somewhere, like mid-shin down. No makeup, no dancing, all that good shit. And so it was weird for me to see Christians, and I'm like,
what's wrong with traditional values?
Okay, if you want those type of values, move to Pennsylvania, help a bunch of guys with beards and no mustaches fucking frame a house, and name your kids Ezekiel.
Or fucking move to the Middle East, and once you get accustomed to the language, then I think you'll adjust quite fine.
Yeah, it's amazing how much, they hate Muslims, but boy, you guys do love to live by the same book of fairy tales, don't you?
Mm-hmm. You got a lot of the same weird ideas about women from these stories. Wonder how that happened. Well,
and the beards.
I think that religion and the central religious political idea of abortion played very strongly in this election. And on top of that, I don't know if there's much proof that these allegations of hitting on teenagers actually hurt him. It's difficult to say. What hurt Roy Moore here is flat out turnout and
allegations. Bitch, you got kicked out of the mall.
Well, I mean, you could look at the idea that if there were 22,000 write-in votes, right? After the senior sitting senator in Alabama said that he could no longer support Roy Moore, where he suddenly found his conscience the day before the election, he said that although that didn't mean that he could vote for a sinner like Doug Jones, but he would just write in the name of his favorite Republican. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the point of that is. You might as well write Ronald Reagan.
Nixon got 10,000 votes.
Right. So there ended up being 22,000 write-in votes, and that could have possibly, if all those write-in votes were Roy Moore votes, Roy Moore could have won this.
Oh, easily.
So, I mean, maybe when it came to the tipping point of which way this election is going to go, maybe that's where the accusations actually played a part in this. But prior to being denounced by the senior senator in his state, there were a lot of people who were coming out to support, and Roy Moore was running on this, that these were outsiders coming in to tell us how to live our lives. And he was fundraising off of these allegations. So he could have actually had more turnout because of these allegations of being I don't know. I know we say child molester loosely, but I don't. As much as we've talked about this, I don't like to get loosey-goosey with these terms. I didn't hear any stories about him fucking a kid, so I'm not going to say child molester. Pedophile goes in the same bucket.
I'm good for you. 32, 14, you're a pedophile in my book.
No,
Sorry,
No, I hear you. His behavior does say pedophile, but if we're going to follow our own rules by this, and naming something means something, if there needs to be a difference between an unwanted sexual advance and rape, I think there needs to be a difference drawn between hitting on a young girl and having sex with a young girl.
Well, it's the whole of a certain age thing, though, that gets me, because it's just like Michael Jackson. It's the ages didn't fluctuate wildly. It was all the same. To me, that's what makes it predatory. When it's all this, coincidence,
right?
They're all the same age. I mean,
right? He didn't fall deeply in love with some love at first sight, and this person just happened to be a teenager. There's clearly a group that he was pursuing. His behavior is that of a pedophile.
I mean, this is something
to say that he was a child molester. I mean, there's been no proof of that, so let's just call it what it is. I guess I'm not trying to defend anybody's actions here, but let's just have clarity in language. Is my hope.
I think something that hasn't been done. Not that I think it would do much good with the true believers, the Kool-Aid drinkers who were in Moore's camp, but it might, even if it gets 10% of his supporters to go, wait a minute, and rethink the thing, their stance. It should have been done. Is that because I've noticed NPR is massively obsessed with it. Was and still is. Mm-hmm. Because it's just been today, it's been article after article about who helped him win, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think NPR should have sent a reporter down there, sat down with his supporters and said, let me ask you a question, and make sure they're all in their late 30s and older. Go, okay, so when you were 32, where would you go at 32 to meet 14-year-old girls or boys for romantic, interest? How would you run across a 14-year-old at 32 years old?
Now you just
but no. I mean, I get it, but damn the jokes for a second. Dead serious. Where the fuck do you run into fucking 14-year-olds at 32 unless you're looking for 14-year-olds? Right. I was 32. I didn't want any teenagers around me.
Right. it's not like you have teenage kids that you're taking to the mall or someplace. Like, you're just lone wolfing it out for teenagers. Well, but you couldn't even break through that, because what a lot of defense that I heard of Roy Moore leading up to the election was, well, this is a man who has had a long political career that is free of controversy, and then all of a sudden, right before this major election that could have nationwide implications, now all of a sudden all these accusations come out of nowhere. And that's what they choose to believe and use as a reason for why these allegations must be false. This is a man who...
Oh, he's a martyr? Look, persecuting him?
He had no controversy in his political career prior to this, no scandal. I'm like, wow, you guys really haven't been paying attention. Like, I don't
he
even
can't go
live
to
in
2
Alabama.
malls. I'd call that a scandal.
Well, sure, but even before any of this shit came out, this is a man who was removed from his job as a judge twice. This is the guy who wanted the 10 Commandments on the courthouse lawn.
Oh God!
This is a man who said that women shouldn't hold jobs.
Well,
but hey,
no,
he's not he's not anti-Semitic though. He's proven that because his lawyer's a Jew. Did you hear that one? Like, they actually, his wife can't. To all these people who are saying that we're against Jews, well, let me just tell you, like, she literally said, I can't be racist. I have a black friend.
I talked with my one Jew friend,
Right.
and this is what he said.
Do you realize the rest of the nation uses that as a joke, right?
It's like Earl's...
About people like you?
It's like Earl's
Like,
panel of basketball experts.
That's what I was thinking. Well, one thing I will say...
or like a person who's like, I can't be racist, man. I love black people, and then just list off like every sports figure that they admire.
Yeah. Like what?
Rapper.
I even went. I love Eddie Murphy. I even went and saw that shitty haunted house movie the day it come out. Man, I'm not racist.
Can't be racist. I had sex with a black chick.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not anti-clown. I have a court jester.
But no, one of the things that I've been saying for years, as far as the American political system, is that the South holds this country hostage when it comes to politics, especially when it comes to the presidential election. And this
they do it all behind this faith. Oh, God, it just makes me want to smack them. Oh, their faith. But as a Christian, I have superior morals than you. I'm sorry to interrupt. It just makes me really mad.
I'm with you.
But you're
this
right.
Election, this election does give me some hope. And as NPR has, I'm sure, multiple people in charge of their Facebook account have tripped over themselves and broken bones to post that it was black women who came out to vote in record numbers is the reason Roy Moore didn't win. Exactly. You can't let that. That's what I've been saying for decades now. The people in the South got to stop with the old boy network holding this country hostage and holding their areas of the country hostage. And the only way that happens, well, there's more than one way, but in polite society, the way to stop that from happening is to go out and vote. And this proves that when this happens, the results, they'll be close, because that's how divided, almost straight down the middle we are as a country right now. It'll be close, but it wouldn't have been even... It would have been a landslide victory for him if half of the black women who showed up to vote didn't show up to vote.
Yeah, same way that you can't say that necessarily accusations of, let's call it being a creep. Creeping on teenagers didn't necessarily affect this election, because the same way that 22,000 votes could have been, instead of being write-ins, could have went to Roy Moore, we could have lost equal number of votes for Doug Jones just because of rain or bad traffic, or just the good old versions of voter suppression, which is like, I know this is a heavily populous district that we're in, but we only have one voting machine. And we're going to check, we need require 2 pieces of ID now for everybody in line. And make the process take twice as long for everybody. I mean, these are just good old-fashioned versions of voter suppression. It could have so easily went the other way, but it was because this whole thing was elevated at a nationwide level and got so much attention that voter turnout across the board was really high. There were people who wanted to speak out in defense of Roy Moore and people who wanted to condemn Roy Moore. It's kind of funny how Doug Jones fits into all of this. Because I don't know if that any of these votes were, I'm really passionate about Doug Jones.
Is it was, the reason
I'm really passionate about anti-Roy Moore.
Is it the reason you think it got so much attention, though? Isn't this part of shifting the balance in Congress? Isn't Congress now split down the middle?
Well, certainly. This? I mean, this would have had just as much attention around it if there weren't some sort of sexual scandal to it as well. Because this is an important election. This is a Republican stronghold. And people want to look at that as a barometer for what is going to happen next year. And I think rightly so. I mean...
Well, that's the thing, man. We better hope. Learn from this. I think Charles Barkley came out and said some crazy shit about, like, all right, learn from this, everybody. Do this again next year.
Right. And the difference here is that, you know... We wouldn't have Trump, I think, if Hillary Clinton gave black people a better reason to get out and vote for her. Other than, why wouldn't they support me? I'm a Clinton.
Well, wait a minute, dude.
She carries around hot sauce in her perks.
No. Fuck all that. She did the nay on Ellen. What more do these Negroes need to vote for this one? I think she even dabbed on him at the end of it. I mean, she put the exclamation point on there, all right? I mean, no, okay, the election's over.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this. For everybody who's a Democrat who's listening, I mean, I'm talking like you vote the party ticket or whatever, vote the party line. Please, stop acting like Trump supporters the day after the fucking presidential election 2016.
Yeah,
all right? You guys are fucking assholes. He wanted a recall. He lost by 1.5%. In Alabama, at 0.5 of a percentage point, the recall is triggered automatically.
Right.
He wanted a recall because it was so close. I seem to remember a whole lot of Hillary supporters and Democrats and just anti-Trump people screaming for a recount.
Yeah, there's a lot of hot recount talk about a year ago.
In the national election. And
Jill Stein was suing people.
And all the Trump supporters were saying, shut up, fucking snowflakes, you lost, get over it. And you rightfully called them out and said, what, you guys can't even win gracefully? And now you won one seat in Congress. And you're going to fucking go on social media and you're going to seek out fucking people who are pissed off that their candidate lost, and you're going to rub it in their face, helping or hurting? Just ask yourself that question before you hit the fucking post button. Helping or hurting?
Did you see, though, the footage of his rally, though, too? Like, calm down, everybody. Like,
what are you talking about? From Roy Moore
Doug
supporters?
Jones.
Oh, from Doug Jones?
Like Jesus showed back up, and he picked that spot, and
right.
Everyone's going home with a free car.
That's what I'm saying. And he was basking in it, and I'm like, dude, it's not you. Like, the nation's going to move on. You're not probably going to survive election in 2018, so let's just enjoy this for what it seems to be.
I mean, the cold shower of the situation is this now like deadlocks Congress. I mean, they weren't getting anything done anyway, but
Right.
Unless all of a sudden people on both sides are going to start actually working with each other, which they're not, because it's about winning, which we've said over and over again, and that's apparently how we are. We're like a nation of fucking toddlers mentally. But so unless there's some olive branches going out from either side, it's just going to be more of nothing getting done, and it's running out the clock till next November, isn't it?
Yeah, and the problem, the real problem I have is it's not even about I expect more from the left than I do the right. It's about I just keep flashing back to 2004 and all these fucking Bush haters who went online into forums before they were, because basically all Facebook is one big internet forum. That's really all it is. Twitter, I guess, now that they've doubled the character limit, but you get what I'm saying. And it's just, and I'm like, why are you pissing people off? Why are you doing this? Why are you fucking with people about who they're going to vote for? Okay, a guy says, I'm a Bush supporter in 2004. You don't want him to vote for Bush. He's a lost cause. Move on. State your case for why someone should vote for Kerry and not Bush, instead of attacking anyone who might be thinking about voting for Bush. Because human nature, and we've proved it since the first one of us crawled out of whatever fucking primordial sludge we crawled out of, is if someone tries to force you to do something, you say fuck them and dig your heels in and go do the exact opposite. And is it a good trait?
Trump.
Is it a good trait in human beings? No, but it's the reality of human nature. Not every human, but a lot of us. I would say the majority, and basing that on over 50%. And if you really want change, you really want progress, you really want candidates in there that represent you, then you need to put your bullshit, foolish pride aside and your gloating and your ha-ha, nana-nana, boo-boo bullshit, and identify who you can fucking maybe talk to, write off those you can't, and stump for the person you want. If you took if the people I saw online today rubbing it into anybody's face that they could find took half the energy they did rubbing it in people's faces into getting a candidate they want elected, they probably have more success than they do. And on top of it, you just come off as just as petty. And let's be honest, the left loves to act like they have some sort of fucking superior social justice, higher, moral high ground over the right.
Yeah. Replacing
and yet
Jesus with smugness somehow is way worse.
It's
because what is Jesus? You could write him off as nutballs.
It's the exact same thing.
It's just douchey.
Right. Well, there's a lot of condemnation out online today too over the fact that, putting aside that they moved 25 plus percentage points from Republican Party to the Democratic side and flipped a stronghold state, people were outraged over the fact that Roy Moore almost got elected. That this was a squeaker, even though this guy is a disgusting person.
Look, that shit's got to stop.
Right. It's first of all, it's not in line with reality. Like, if you don't see what happened in this election as some sort of progress, then what the fuck are you fighting for? I mean, this should be celebrated, but just like any win should be celebrated gracefully. But
this hand wringing and this, well, that's nice, but what about that shit's got to stop. I mean, if the Democrats and the left want to win, they have to start fucking. They have to stop this bullshit of, okay, but what about? Okay, but what about? Okay, but what about? That doesn't. When the right does it, we all roll our eyes and go, oh God, here. I mean, it's like your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. Oh, he's drunk again. Oh boy. And you just roll your eyes and just do your best to ignore him. That's how I feel about the Republican Party for the most part. The Democrats, I kind of feel that way about a lot of them. But it's like, aren't you supposed to be better? Isn't this the whole thing? That you're more enlightened, that you're more progressive? Isn't that? I mean, not our thing, not the way we view them. Isn't that the way they're supposed to? Isn't it the way they view themselves?
I think the only what about that I want to hear is what about the next issue?
What about 2018? That's what I wanted.
Right.
You know who we need? You know who the Democratic Party needs? It needs Bill Belichick. And Aaron, he's the coach of the Patriots in football. They won the Super Bowl. The next day they asked him, how you feel about winning the Super Bowl? And he said, it feels great, but you know what? We need to stop celebrating because we're already one day late to winning our next one.
Bam.
That's the type of motherfucking leader the Democratic Party needs. Enjoy victory night, drink, take your aspirin before you go to bed, drink a glass of water. That way you're not too hungover because we got work to do tomorrow. Instead, it's because, and I feel a lot of this is because Trump has done it, taken multiple victory laps, even post-election. I mean, don't you remember his victory tour between his election and his being sworn in? I mean, we all were like, oh, God. That left me like wanting to bathe in Purell. Like, seriously, dude? Mm-hmm. You won the presidency. Why are you walking around going, but, you know, I won the presidency, but seriously, just, I don't have small hands and I got a big dick. I just need you to know that. And I'm going to go tell everybody that, dude, you're the president. Everyone's going to lie to you about your dick anyways. Now, that's the biggest dick I've ever seen, Mr. President.
Most presidential penis I've ever seen.
On Tuesday night, watching the election results come in, this is one of the rare times I actually flip on the TV news. And I was bouncing back and forth between MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. And after they called the election for Doug Jones, there's very different talk going on each channel, as you can imagine. MSNBC and CNN were way more of the, well, this is a referendum on Trump and Trump's policies and his popularity as a president. And Fox was all, oh, this is Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon basically positioned Roy Moore as his candidate and kind of forced Trump to support him. But if Trump had his way, we would have had whoever the fuck else. Who's in the seat now? I forget. Doesn't matter. He's going to be out anyway.
I say no, it's not. To both of them.
No, it's not what?
Just what you said.
Oh no,
it's
not. It's not a referendum on Trump.
Referendum on Trump and his popularity. No, it's not. And what you just said about, hey, it's Steve Bannon. No, it's not. Like it's all the narrative each side spins.
I think these are all the same way that there's many contributing factors to why this race was so tight. There's not one issue that you could point to and say this is what tipped the election. You can cherry pick your own story out of that, and if you wanted to, this is a sign of possible positive change for the country. I think that's a safe bet. That the line that Fox News kept putting out there was, well, this has nothing to do with Trump, because if you were to put Trump policies up for a vote in Alabama, they would win in a landslide. And I think that's a true statement. It's outside of how well does polling on these type of subjects work. That's totally debatable, but I think that's true to say that his core policies of building the wall and having some faith-based government system, apparently.
Locking her up.
Yeah, I mean, there may be people in Alabama who are seeing Trump as less effective and less useful as he may have looked in the past, but I don't think that the scales are falling from anyone's eyes, that they're going, wow, I've been really racist recently in my life and in my voting actions. Maybe I want to dial that back some.
I think it's just more people showing up.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is, and every time that we see record turnout we never hear that followed up with Republican landslide. It just doesn't happen. Record turnout means Democrats win, hands down.
Well, no, that's the dirty little secret behind so many of the stories we've heard about voter fraud. It's always coming from the right. Oh, there's voter fraud, and we need stricter guidelines and regulations and to be able to vote, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, of course you want less people to vote, because it historically, look at it. It's just what you said. And that's something that I don't understand why okay, Aaron, you're not a political strategist. You're not a politician.
No.
You're not a
wrong
fucking
either.
you're not no, but what I'm saying is that you're not, like, you don't have some inside information that enlightens you to this fact. So why the fuck doesn't the news report this shit? I mean,
I don't know. It's not a sexy issue, I guess.
There's stories to tell. Always remember that.
You know, I know it's a tired, cliched trope. Oh, cliched trope is like redundant, but whatever. but it really, man.
Telling you that trope is cliched.
I just ejaculated irony all over that statement. Didn't even mean to. But I mean, no, the news is there to fucking divide and conquer, man. Come on. It's just there to fucking stir up. What's some hot button issues that are going to get people pissed off and talking? Because stories that make us complacent or happy, they put them at the end of the newscast. You know, man saves dog. And, you know, hey, we're going to send you off feeling good after telling you everything is wrong with the world and how you're being fucked over and how brown people are trying to steal everything from you. And then, you know all this bullshit that they just constant nonsense. That's what the news wants to report on. I'm talking journalism. That's the word I was looking for. I was like, you're not a journalist. It's not like you're Woodward or Bernstein. Where are the journalists these days? I'm talking the motherfuckers who get into the trenches, the studs Terkels, the fucking, you know. Well, I mean, Matt Taibbi does a good job, but he's obviously slanted to one side.
Plus, he molests women.
He got accused?
Oh, yeah.
Did he get accused? Oh, no, fuck. I didn't even know that.
No, I think it was bullshit. Anyway, it was a journalist, though, that had my favorite tweet post-election night on Tuesday, which was, I apologize, I don't know how to exactly pronounce his first name. It's Nikhil, maybe? Nikhil. Nikhil Goyal. His tweet was, all Democrats need to campaign on the Second Voting Rights Act. Automatic voter registration, restoring voter rights for ex-felons, repeal of voter ID laws, nonpartisan redistricting commissions, and making Election Day a national holiday. And he's right on the money.
I'm down with all that.
I know that we've grown up with this system, and it just seems like natural to most people. But we have one of the most restrictive voting systems for a supposedly, free democratic society.
The only thing that always rubs me the wrong way, I always ask this question every time it comes up, is what is so wrong with showing proof of that you live in that district so you can vote? What is wrong with that? It's to keep, what? I mean, if you can't do that, what's to stop you from, I'm going to go vote here, and I'm going to vote over there, and I'm going to go vote over here?
Mm-hmm.
Because, hold on.
They have a list. You can show up and go, this is my name and this is my address, and they go, okay, but, you're on our list. Now, I could impersonate somebody else and go vote in their name, but then I'm going to be found out if that person shows up. I can't vote him anywhere else because unless I happen to just find a bunch of IDs from people that live in the area in different voting districts that I know aren't going to show up. I mean, is voter fraud possible, and has it happened before, and do people still attempt it now? Absolutely. It's so minuscule of an issue, it's a non-issue. And to push for anything other than having a voter roll, and having somebody show up and say, that's me on the voter roll is.
But you need ID for so many more things that don't matter, like that people have no problem with. But when it comes to voting, like we're up in arms. You just need to provide ID to fucking get a fucking video.
So
nobody had a problem with that one.
Chris, in theory, I agree with you. Here's the problem: when it comes to election day, in theory, in lip service, we give lip service to this. On election day, the poorest man in the country has the same fucking vote, or has the same amount of power to vote as the richest man in the country. All right? That's the theory. The truth is that if you start saying, well, you need voter IDs, okay, well, what happens to people who are homeless? And I don't mean homeless in living under a viaduct. I'm talking people that are couch surfing from friend's house to friend's house. Where do they get their fucking mail sent? What if they don't have their voter ID? So they just can't vote? I mean, we're not talking about voting is a right.
About a voter ID card. I'm just talking about showing ID to prove you're you and you live in the district.
I
don't need another thing to carry around and lose.
They've got you on the list. That's how they know. Beyond that, there's no reason for a stricter system. When it comes to what should be required of a person to be able to cast their vote in this country, the burden of proof is on anybody who wants to put any type of regulation on that. If you want to say that people need to have a valid picture government-issued ID in order to cast their vote, then you should be able to show me the statistics that show that people are tipping votes, that there's actual voter fraud that changes elections in this country going on between groups of individuals who are all trying to game the system in some way. It just doesn't happen.
Well, what was the numbers that came up?
I'll chase this down.
To what end? Look, it doesn't have to be. Look, if you want to buy a car, that's fine. Somebody has to trust you enough to say, I'm going to take this multi-$1,000 vehicle and give you just a couple $100 now, and we have an arrangement. Yeah, you have to show fucking ID for that, because they have to track your ass down. This isn't.
No, but I'm saying what's next. Is having to prove that you have an address in the district going to be going too far? That seems plausible to me that someone's going to start chasing that down.
What's the pure intent here, right? It's to make sure that everybody gets one vote and one vote only. So if the system works for that purpose, the system works and everything else is superfluous. In nations where people don't have government-issued IDs, they don't have a roll of voters. What do they do in the fucking Middle East? They just dip their finger in the ink.
I was going to say, why don't we do what we do at nightclubs? Get a permanent marker,
right.
Put an X on their hand. What are they? Right. Seriously, how many people are going to go, oh, I got this permanent marker X on my hand. Let me find a bathroom and scrub till I bleed so I can go vote again. How many people are going to do that, honestly, enough to tip an election?
Well, I think that would be too loose. Because I personally, and I know many people who have gone to the bathroom and scrubbed off an X, or even tried to do a stamp transfer. They had a specific a stamp for 21 and over. People would be like, let me lick your hand and then push it on mine and see if we can get the stamp onto mine. But anyway.
Of course. But I mean, let's be honest. Half this country or more doesn't vote anyways.
Right.
I mean, so the odds of so many people willing to do something, and I mean, obviously I was being facetious with a permanent marker, but something that would be there for 24 hours.
Right. When you're talking about regulating voting rights, you're talking about restricting freedom and possibly somebody who should be able to cast a vote not being able to. And so again, the burden of proof is on you.
How is proving who you are so I can check your name off the big giant list, like fucking with somebody's voting rights?
How is it not?
That is essentially what Prove that you're you so I can mark you off the big list that we have? What is wrong with that? You say there's a big list.
There's nothing wrong with it, Chris. There's nothing wrong with it. There is nothing empirically wrong with that, and I know that that it seems innocuous enough because of all the different transactions that we have in our lives that involve proving who we are. But I don't know how to put this differently. If you want to possibly cause a situation where somebody doesn't get to vote who should, you really have to prove that the issue that you're pushing for, voter ID or redistricting of gerrymandering of a district or anything like that, the burden of proof is on the person who is looking to do the restriction of that freedom, and that works for that. That's how we should handle all of our freedoms. We understand that there's restrictions to all the freedoms that we enjoy in some reasonable ways, but it's.
We can agree to disagree on this one because I'm gonna have to show an ID in a few hours to get on an airplane. No one's got a problem with that.
Why does that? How does that equate to your vote at all? All you're telling me is that there are conventions in your life where you're required to show ID, and that voting should just.
There's a big list,
voting is just another one of those.
So they can check me off on the big list.
Does not mean that. Look, you flying on a plane has nothing to do with your voting rights. Zero. Show me how those two relate.
I don't understand why verifying that you're you is seen as suppressing voter rights. I'll never understand it, I guess. And we can just agree to disagree and move on. Because I don't understand it.
Well, then, you know what? I mean, I guess that...
Have you ever not had an ID? Because I've been through this. Have you ever had an experience where, for whatever reason in your life, you don't have a permanent address... You don't have a valid ID. You can't get a bank account. You can't go into bars.
Yeah, Aaron?
Because this shit fucking happens. And make all your judgments about people however you want.
Okay, Aaron, just 1 sec. Happened to me last year. To this day, I don't know what fucking happened to my wallet, and I'd had it for 20 years. I could not find my wallet. My ID, everything was in there. I went online, and I put a hold on my ATM card. That's all it would let me do online. I went to the bank. They said, do you have any ID? I said, no. They said, do you have your ATM card we could swipe? Right. I said, no, I lost it. They said, well, you got to go get your ID. So I went to the DMV, and they said, well, how do we know who you are who you say you are?
Yeah, do you have a credit card or an ATM card in your name?
And I said, no, I lost my entire fucking wallet. And thank God the lady at the Secretary of State, I keep saying DMV, I forget you guys call it Secretary of State, took pity on me and pulled up my driving record and said, you were convicted of this and on this date. What was it? And I said, oh, shit. The only thing I've been convicted of, obstructing traffic. She goes, okay, fill this out. And I was like, thank you. Because if not, literally, I could not prove who I was. I couldn't get a hold of my money. I couldn't go in someplace and ask, or go into the DMV and go, hey, I need a replacement. I had just moved. I had nothing with my new address on it. So I mean, I was like, granted, it would only lasted a couple days until I got my first bill at my new place. And I can go, look, here's who I am.
Right.
Now that's proof. But I mean, if she hadn't taken pity on me for 4 days, I'd have been a non-person unless I had cash, as far as the world went. The world I would move in. And I mean, to I guess to meet halfway between what you guys are saying, Chris, you want some sort of ID to be shown to prove who you are? Fine. Government issue voter IDs. But what's the problem? What's the problem there? The minute it's lost, you're fucked. The minute it's lost, you're fucked. Or, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the more levels of bureaucracy you add, the more chance for fuckery to happen. Mm-hmm. And if something gets misprinted, and I had this happen once, I'm the second, I'm not junior, I'm the second, and they printed Junior on something, on a legal document, and I signed it the second, and thank God the person crossing the T's and dotting the I's said, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. And I said, well, because I didn't even notice that Junior's it's not my legal name. Mm-hmm. They said, well, we got to retype this up because this document wouldn't be legal otherwise. But I mean, that shit happens all the time. So that person doesn't get to vote because of some fuckery. I mean, the system's never going to be flawless.
True. But what if I asked you, would you support a bill saying that anyone who wants to cast a vote in this country has to pay $10 to do so?
Fuck no. And that's why I said a government-issued ID, they're going to have to pay for it.
Right. So I know, like, scraping together $10 to get a current ID is seen as being a responsible adult thing to do, and that's fine. It should be within the means of anybody in this country, it would seem. Even if you're collecting bottles, you can scrape together $10 in a day's work. But to make that a requirement in order to cast a vote, I don't see the point of that.
I mean, to me, the point of voting
it's not an open system where we're just on the honor. It's not an honor system when it comes to voting. Like I said, we have a roll of everybody who in this district who's registered to vote. We do have to register in advance. I mean, even that should go away. We should be pre-registered. We've all got social security numbers. The government all knows who we are.
I thought
all we got to do is update our
system. Because it's based on where you live.
I thought here in Michigan, when you got a driver's license or renewed it, they automatically registered you to vote, unless you requested them not to.
Yes, that's fairly recent, but yes.
Fairly recent. Dude, it's been since I've been 16. Since I've been driving it.
No, there's a difference. You can register to vote, and you might get a civically minded person at the Secretary of State who asks if you want to, but they were under no requirements to do so, and there are plenty of times where I wasn't asked.
Yeah, every license I've had, you're automatically registered to vote. It's ever since my first driver's license. Well, ever since my first one, since I was over 18. Not
automatically. They may have just assumed and handed you papers to sign, but
that's because you're such an upstanding looking citizen, Chris. They just assumed you wanted to do your civic. Hey, I knew you not that long after you were 16. Unless you changed radically, you still looked like a regular tax-paying citizen. Like you didn't come in with like an MS-13 face tattoo or nothing at 16. So, look, no, and I mean we've strayed way far from the original topic, but I mean, to me, the point of voting in this country, the right we have to vote, is that no matter how much of a low bottom junkie you are, you can walk in that day and cast your one vote. And to me, that's the point of it. It doesn't matter who the fuck you are. That's why we got rid of, you don't have to be, it's no longer white male landowners that can only vote.
Well, okay, why aren't criminals allowed to vote?
Now, this is interesting because I just had a discussion literally a couple days ago with a friend of mine in the legal field.
Yeah.
And she said here in Michigan, felons can vote.
Yes, it does vary from state to state, but
I didn't know
more often than not, you encounter the state laws are that if you are convicted of a crime, you can't vote. If you're incarcerated, you can't vote. And sometimes it's even after you've served your time, it's very difficult to get your voting status back. But pretend I'm from another planet. Somebody please explain to me why a criminal shouldn't have a vote. Okay, voter suppression. That's the only fucking reason then. Because criminals are more likely to vote Democratic. That's why criminals can't vote in this country for the most part. There's no other fucking reason. Because they're fucking insane because you can't trust them. They're going to vote for some nutbag. You think all the psychotics in the fucking country are going to band together and prop up one candidate and tip a fucking election?
Is kind of a reach. I think it's more of a moral superiority thing than a partisan thing.
Oh no, it's 100% a partisan thing.
So now we're taking something away from you.
No, but let's go back to the facts. More turnout equals Democratic wins. So who has the incentive to suppress a vote? Republicans do. So any reason that they can think of that seems relatively sane in anyone's mind is used to try and remove somebody from the voter rolls. That is as much as part of the battle as campaigning and redistricting is, or gerrymandering as they refer to it. These are actual political strategies.
I think, and then it starts getting into, for me, like, is voting a right or a privilege? Because a privilege can be taken away.
It's absolutely a right. If
it that becomes a huge, giant, gray discussion that could turn this into a 5-hour podcast.
I don't know about that. I think it's done. It's a right. I don't see how you could argue otherwise.
Well, it's laid out in the Constitution, but if you start taking it away, then you start. They said you could start that discussion. Well, like, does now make it a privilege?
It started off as a right for a very select group of people in this country, and slowly over the last close to 250 years has it been extended. At least given lip service that everybody's allowed to vote.
And then that's maybe why it can be taken away from criminals. Maybe that's the rationale. It's a privilege. You did a bad thing. Now this happens.
Then whoever's thinking that is wrong. Period. And if they don't see it as wrong, then I don't ever want to hear them talk about the rule of law or any of their rights when the police come kicking in their door at 6 a.m. Period. If you don't, this is something that is irritating me because it's connected to a bunch of different issues that are hot right now. The sexual harassment stuff, the issue we're talking about. If you want to cherry pick what rights people can have, then you're not for the rule of law. Don't say you're a lawful, that you support the law. If someone's accused of something and they're innocent till proven guilty, that's period. Just because they're accused of something heinous that you despise doesn't mean they're guilty till proven innocent. Period. Don't come at me with, well, I'm all about law and order. No, you might as well just call yourself what you are, which is a half-ass wannabe anarchist. You want to act like most Christians. You want to cherry pick what you believe in. Well, it don't work that way with the law. The law is the law, all right? If you have the right to vote, it's a right. It's an entitlement, period.
Right. What if we just said we were going to get rid of the courts and just go to some system where we trot out a person in a coliseum, announce over the PA what they're accused of, and then, if you think they're guilty, you start pelting them with rocks, and if not, you abstain. And we can just try by the passion of public opinion, because that's basically what we're doing on social media right now.
Well, it's like the last year,
right? Well, I mean, public opinion is one thing, all right, and that's liable to go anywhere depending on what group of people you get together and what the climate is socially at the time. But that is why law is how it is what it is. It's okay. There's a difference between punishment and vengeance. Case in point, what happened with Penn State, all right? Now, granted, the law was involved only in the child molestation part, but there was a point where the NCAA realized we're punishing people that had nothing to do with this, and it's not even punishment anymore, it's vengeance. Because it was such a heinous crime that was going on for decades within this program. But you can't, this isn't the fucking Bible. The Bible is not the law. We can't go, your father was this, so we're going to punish you. The sins of the father are not visited upon the son. That is the point of law. You fuck up, you pay the price. Once you have paid your price, in theory, once again, we give lip service to this. I'm damn sure we don't fucking follow through with it. But we give lip service to the fact that once you pay your price, you're done. You're free and clear. You come back into society. Now, if we go, well, you fucked up and you got caught with fucking 4 grams of fucking weed in an area where they don't suffer any type of potheads. So you did 6 months. You get out. Now we're going to start taking your rights away from you. Wait a minute. My punishment hasn't ended. You're continuing to punish me. Mm-hmm. And to take and I agree with you, Chris, to take someone's rights away from them, that means it's a privilege. That's the government overstepping its bounds. That's not if the government steps in and tries to take a right and make it into a privilege, that's them overstepping their bounds. And I say it all the time, but when they overstep that much, roll out the guillotine. Put a couple judges' heads in there. Guarantee you they won't fucking step over that line again. Chop. Did we all get the point, or do we need to put the second one in there? Don't fuck with our rights. I mean, that's just period. And voting is like the most basic right on what this country's built on. If not, we would just have a monarchy. Christ, we damn near got a monarchy going on with the last 30 years. Between Bushes and Clintons, they passed the fucking presidency around like a goddamn party joint. So,
right. Let's look at, like, cars are a good metaphor for freedom in this country. We're kind of obsessed with them. And, you know, that's a big reason why people get all weirded out about automated vehicles, because, you know, they like driving. You know, they feel like they express themselves in some way in the way that they drive or their choice of vehicle. I don't know why people get that attached to a piece of metal, but, you know, if you're going to say to me that I can't drive my car in a certain fashion, the burden of proof is on you to show me why, right? You can't drive 100 miles an hour down the freeway. Why not? It's a free country. I paid for the taxes that made this. My taxes made these roads. I paid for this car. I'm going to drive however the fuck I want. This is America, right? Okay, but no, we're going to show you why, you know, statistics on deaths from high-speed crashes, and this is a reason why we have to restrict your rights, okay? That's reasonable. If you're going to restrict my voting rights, show me the statistics. Show me the reasons why we have to regulate this. If you can't prove why this is a problem in this country that needs to be regulated, because all regulations are restrictions of freedom, then that's a non-starter. It's not up to me to constantly defend my rights and fight for them. Maybe a patriot's responsibility to fight for their rights, but it shouldn't be expected that they constantly fight against law.
Show me the impropriety. I'm looking at it as it's there to keep it from happening. We're looking at it two different ways. Like it's
but the numbers just don't play out in your favor. I mean, in a system where we didn't have consistent voter rolls, where we couldn't track people in the same way. Certainly, there's famous stories about in Chicago, vote early and vote often. That was a joke.
Dead people were voting and shit, yeah.
Right, because they didn't have control over this shit. So there were needs for certain restrictions so that we could make sure that the idea of one vote, one person was as true as possible in this country.
Well, see, I think this is where us lying to people and calling it polite society, this is one of those times it's biting us in the ass. Who do we really not want voting in this country? People who aren't citizens. If you're here illegally, we don't want you voting.
Yeah.
Period. The numbers, you're right, Aaron. We went through this with the 2016 election. We talked about it for an hour. One of the first couple shows after the election. Trump was saying 3 million people voted, and when people looked into it, it was literally 4,000.
Yes.
Nothing that was going to affect the election. And so let's put that bullshit baby to bed, and let's look at the real thing. We don't want people who aren't citizens voting. If you're here illegally, you're breaking the law. You don't get to vote. But if we say that, we all know what's going to happen. I mean, look at how language has been changed just in the last 15, 20 years when it comes to people who are in this country illegally. It used to be they're in this country illegally. They're illegal immigrants. No, now they're undocumented.
Person's not illegal, Rich.
Exactly. Exactly. See, at some point, someone tried to indoctrinate you. It's in your head. I mean, and so that's what we want to stop. Okay, then shouldn't that be a bipartisan issue? The fact that it's not should be a big warning flag for anybody who's paying attention. The problem is you got most people in this country, large portion of this country don't give a fuck enough to pay attention. They don't care. They don't even go out to vote themselves. And goddamn it, I've been guilty of it at times. When I was younger, I got to a point where like, would you like to register to vote? No. Why? Because I'm not going to vote in this election. And I don't want to be called for jury duty, period. Don't put me on that button. Don't register me to vote. I've gotten to that point in my life, so I know what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes beyond, though, just the idea of citizenship. It's the idea of competency comes into play. That it's not just about the person who.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that there's a system of checks and balances to where if they can't do these basic things, then they're not competent to vote? Is that what you're getting at? Okay.
No, not that plainly. I'm speaking more broadly in the fact that if I'm going out and I'm a passionate voter, let's say I vote Republican, the Republican Party line every time, and I feel like I'm well informed and I'm voting on issues that matter to me. And then I'm going to have my vote canceled out by some idiot, And that can be broadly applied, but that idiot could be that black dude over there that always votes Democratic because they always just vote Democratic and they don't know. Or some sort of minority group that is just trying to, push for their own agenda and try and change my way of life. Well, that's the system that we have. If they end up being in the majority, guess what? Your way of life is going to change. But there's certainly, I can't say certainly, right? Because I'm implying that I'm basically saying that I can read people's minds, and I can't. But you can read actions. And a lot of people are telegraphing the idea that when they talk about, voter suppression, or not voter suppression, but let's say if they believe these numbers that Trump says, 2 to 3 million people voted illegally in some fashion, right? It's not about just the immigrants that are coming into this country illegally that shouldn't have a vote. There's definitely the idea that there are citizens in this country that shouldn't have a vote, whether it's because you just believe that they are lesser than you in some fashion or because they're so politically wrong-minded that they don't even fit into this country in your mind. So I don't know. Let's talk about net neutrality.
Yeah, Donald Trump's going to turn off your internet. That's what I've been reading today.
This is a funny issue.
Social media.
And, anyone who has been listening since the beginning or went back through the archives has heard me talk about on this show being pro net neutrality. And, I'll confess to, I don't know if I was necessarily I was misinformed on the subject because I read about it, but maybe guilty of not seeing the bigger picture of what's going on. And this idea that, let's face it, the only reason that net neutrality is going away is because it was something that was put in place under Obama. And as much as people think Obama, that Trump has a self-driven initiative on any of these things, it's just a whole checklist of whatever Obama did, I'm doing the opposite of. That's the only platform that they really have. So anytime that they can say that an Obama-era regulation is being overturned, that's a big win. And this is just another one of them. Now, what does it really mean? I don't think most people have an idea because, take, for example, a lot of what people who are pro-net neutrality are worried about are the little guys, the little creatives that are out there online. This idea that if I want to stream my Netflix video or if I want to, support some independent artists through Patreon and enjoy their work that they produce online, that I'm going to get the same internet either way. That all comes across the same channel. I don't get there's no preferential treatment given to Netflix because they because they're a bigger organization than this one individual, making a website, this essentially small business person. So I follow a lot of creatives online on through Twitter, independent artists and writers, and a lot of them seem to just be tearing their hair out online today over this idea that net neutrality regulations are going away. That I don't know if I can do this anymore. This is going to affect my way of life. I'm not going to be able to have my own website, really.
They didn't exist till 2015.
Exactly.
That's one thing I've learned in the last few weeks when everyone's been going insane. Net neutrality did not exist till 2015. Everything was fine before it.
Okay, hold on. And you know what? Was one of the major catalysts that brought it around? The fact that Comcast was throttling Netflix back in 2013 and 2014. That's one of the major fucking things that happened that sparked the call for net neutrality. Because just because corporations hadn't thought of how to be more greedy and milk more dimes and pennies out of people up until that point doesn't mean it's not a valid issue. Okay, just because they didn't think outside the box until that point, and then when they got caught, someone said, no, fuck this, we're going to nip this in the bud before it gets out of control. Before you have to, you want to go to Facebook? Well, that's $5. This is our Facebook package. This is our Instagram package.
Right.
Oh, you want to go to you want to go to every place on the internet at the same speed? That's $100 a month. Well, I mean, to me, the bigger issue about this is that you have the Trump administration who ran talking all this horse shit about how this is a populist movement, this is for the people, blah, blah, blah. 83% of this country is for net neutrality.
Right.
And his minions just fucking did their best through the FCC, or they did kill it through the FCC. It still has to go through Congress. How the fuck is that a populist movement? How is that the will of the people? That to me is the bigger issue that's getting lost in this, because people want to fucking go, everyone on the right wants to go, oh God, zombies are going to invade fucking Manhattan and the world's going to come to an end because net neutrality stopped. And the left wants to act like, oh my God, you're not going to be able to log onto the internet on December 15th, 2018. No, the bigger issue is what the fuck is going on to where the overwhelming majority of this country is against something, and our government just goes, we don't really give a fuck.
Right.
Fuck you.
Right. That's completely valid. That's also why this doesn't matter. Because this is a market-driven issue. And certainly, there are a lot of places where Comcast especially has a monopoly, like in my area. I have options for internet. But if I want good internet that allows me to do what I'm doing right now, I'm streaming my voice to a studio that is also streaming your voices into that studio, and I'm also monitoring that studio through video that I stream. I mean, I have to have decent internet for that. I have to have Comcast. But that is all going to change in the very near future anyway. Let's kind of set that aside, though.
Talk about that 5G.
Absolutely. 5G is going to change everything. But the reason that the rules about the regulations on net neutrality don't really matter in my mind are that because this is a market-driven issue and because there will be increased competition coming down the line very soon that will more than likely drive prices down, the people's will be heard, because Comcast understands that there are still limits to what they can get away with. And net neutrality hasn't done anything to regulate anybody's bill. It hasn't brought down pricing for anyone. It really didn't change the structure of how anybody got their internet. And now
there's still data plans. I mean, those are right.
And talking about all the independents that I follow online that were freaking out about their way of life or their way of doing business being affected by this as a small business person, is, again, you mentioned this went into effect in 2015. These people all had successful online websites. They were getting their art out there, their writing out there before all this and during, and they will continue to afterward. Well, because there's no business like Comcast will do what they can get away with. I mean, if there was complete free and open internet, same access for everybody under net neutrality, why was Comcast still allowed to have separate pricing for businesses? How come it's $45 if I want internet into my home, but it's $200 if I want it to go to my business? There's all different types of price. I mean, everyone wants to talk about free and open access. Every internet plan out there has a tiered structure.
Look at your cell phone plan.
I have to choose how fast I want my internet to be, and I have to pay for it accordingly. I don't just pay a flat fee to Comcast and get all the internet. They throttle it unless I pay them top dollar.
Okay, so
it's
setting aside my issue with the fact that this goes against the vast majority of what the people in this country want.
Yes.
Okay, I'll read you a tweet that Comcast sent out. We do not and will not block, throttle, or discriminate against lawful content. We will continue to make sure that our policies are clear and transparent for consumers, and we will not change our commitment to these principles. And then there's a response, and it's the best response I've heard to it. And this gentleman says, basically what you're saying is, we never will, but it's very important that we're able to, but we won't. So let us do it, because we won't do it, which is why we're spending so much money to make sure we can, but we won't, but let us. I'm sorry, man. The fact that the cable companies were throwing millions of dollars to end net neutrality tells me they got something in store that we ain't even thought of yet. And this fantasy of this open market and competition, all these cable companies have to do is get together and go, hey, nobody fucking price lower than the rest of us. And we can gouge the fuck out of these idiots because they'll have no place else to go. I'm sorry. Who's your second fucking choice for cable in your area? Oh, that's right. You don't have one. So I guess you better shut the fuck up and fork over that money, huh? Mm-hmm. And believe me, if it ain't in your cable bill, it's going to be through all your beloved streaming services. And as more and more fucking places go to online streaming and offering content that way, when the cable companies start charging them more, who do you think they're going to pass that on to? You're going to pay for this one way or the other, period. You're either going to pay the cable company or you're going to pay the content providers. Or you're just going to get a big old middle finger, stick it in everyone's face, get a Tor browser, and learn to fucking set up a VPN and go torrent the fuck out of everything. There's your choices, period. And I mean, if you are... I mean, I don't know. Rooting for Comcast to me is like going to a casino and rooting for the house. I don't understand that, but I understand there's a bunch of people who think they're temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and that somehow they're going to be billionaires one day, and then they're going to join the elite. You're not never going to be in that club, but you carry more water for them and you cheerlead for them harder than most motherfuckers who are in the club. I don't understand it. I do not get it. I'm sorry. Net neutrality was a prophylactic to stop a problem from getting to the point where it could get bad. And Comcast lied their ass off in that statement, in that tweet, because they were the ones who got caught throttling fucking Netflix's bandwidth 3 years ago, which brought about, I mean, it wasn't the only thing, but it was a major fucking starting point for the whole net neutrality issue. So why, please, someone, explain to me, besides the fact that you worship at the altar of everything corporate in America, why I should believe these companies who will not act in anybody's best interest but their own.
You shouldn't. But in the same way that we were talking about regulating our freedoms, and if you're going to regulate a business, you have to prove why there's some reason why that business isn't regulating itself properly to begin with. And these things do happen. You would think that it would, if you sold a food product that got somebody sick, it would be hard to stay in business. But, until we actually started looking into these things and deciding that we had to have a federal regulation to decide what we were consuming, and whether it was, healthy and safe or not. So, in the same way that regulation on the internet is something that it's inevitable in some respect. It has to be. There's no situation where there's going to be a completely free and open internet, unless the government is actually using your tax dollars to just beam 5G into every home in America. Then you're going to be at the whim of the market, and that's going to. So I'm not making myself clear, but I'm kind of talking in circles.
At least you're consistent, because I did have the thought of like, so preventing something that's bad from happening, maybe, with net neutrality, we don't want it, but with voting, we don't want, like, that's...
Yeah, but here's the thing, Chris.
Just like, hey, prove it to me.
If the burden of proof, or excuse me, if the bar is set that you have to prove that companies will do this to their customers, it's already happened. I mean, that's
not exactly what I'm saying, though. It's not whether it's happening or not whether you can point to examples of where it has happened. You have to look at whether it's a sustainable system or not. Well,
let me ask a dumb
Comcast
question.
is current. Well, let me finish real quick though. Comcast has been able to ride on its current business model because of lack of competition. Again, that's all going to change completely. The way that we get our internet over the next 5 years is going to be completely different in this country. And unless Comcast adapts, they will go the way of the dinosaur. If they hold on to their hard lines as they're into our homes, then they may as well be investing in fossil fuels. I mean, it will soon be outdated technology that it will be useless. So, like, has Comcast done lots of shady shit? Have they been able to get away with this because they have a monopoly in a lot of places in this country? Absolutely. Is regulating the internet the answer to keeping Comcast in line? Highly doubtful.
Well, my question, and this is, like I said, it's a dumb question, because I don't know. I don't know the answer, so that's why I guess it's a dumb question. Okay, electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you pay a different rate depending on where you live? So if you live in the UP, you pay a different rate for electricity.
Yeah.
Than you do.
Yeah, I mean, even in the same way that the gas prices are higher, it's transportation and delivery is more expensive.
Okay. But they have to show, they can't just go, well, you live in the UP, of course you're going to pay more. They have to show, there has to be some reason, right?
Right, the same way
there's
that,
different rates per kilowatt hour in different places.
So they have to show, that we have this much demand on our system at this point. And
okay. Now, is internet considered a utility?
Well, that's the thing.
I mean, legally.
As the concept of the internet grows, we've had to adapt the way that we think about it. And thinking about the internet, like it can be classified all under one umbrella as a human right or, a basic utility that should be enjoyed everywhere in this country. Well,
the human right thing is the UN. Let's take that. It's not just because the UN said it. We're America. We don't have to. We're one of the few countries and go, yeah, whatever, fuck off. We don't have to listen to them. What are you gonna do? Sanction us with your army?
Right. Well, I think you have to think about it in this respect. Is that is it a utility? Well, I think even if you can find some way to technically not put it in that class, if you want to think that upward mobility is a basic right in this country, that's one of the things that we're the most proud of in America, right? That this is a country where anybody can make it. If you want to consider that upward mobility is a basic right, then I think that the internet kind of falls underneath that.
Is it required for survival? It's required for functioning in society, yes, but if you wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden the internet is gone, you will still breathe oxygen.
But think about all
your day.
How many of the basic human rights that we think of in this country directly relate to surviving?
I'm just talking about biology.
But it's not about biology.
Physiological survival. You would, if they wake up tomorrow and internet just all of a sudden just disappears, you would still exist.
Right, but if you woke up tomorrow and you had no access to the internet and everybody else did, you would be at a disadvantage, and you would be less likely to have that upward mobility.
I'm talking about basic human survival. If you go without internet,
I know that you're talking about basic human survival.
If you're deprived of water for an extended amount of time, you will cease to exist. There's a difference to me.
Yes, but we're talking about what we enjoy as basic rights in this country, not about what allows us to live day in and day out.
To me, basic right is survival. If we're talking basic rights, things that require me,
it's not.
that
it's
I
about
require
freedom.
to survive. To keep sucking oxygen. That's, if we're talking basic rights.
What about expressing yourself? What about the basic rights of expressing yourself and voicing your opinion has to do with survival?
To me, that's functioning in society. That's not basic survival.
But this is all under the idea of basic rights in this country.
The right to express your opinion didn't mean shit. It was all about waking up tomorrow. I mean, again, if we're saying basic survival, that's what I'm talking about. Basic rights. That's I guess how I'm
Those are
wired.
two different things. Those are two different things. Those are that you just said.
No, that's why I corrected.
That's why I corrected
the second one.
But you're talking on one hand about basic survival.
Basic rights are linked to basic survival.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. and that's part of it. Upward mobility is part of that.
It's not a right, it's a part of our society. Because there's some societies on the planet where we're
not talking about other societies. We're talking about the U.S. and the rights that we enjoy in this country. And one of those is the idea of upward mobility.
I mean, look, I have a hard time. I agree with Chris in this aspect. If it is required for survival, I see that as that's more. If we're going to talk a human right, human rights that everybody should have.
Yeah.
All right, period. Then, yeah, if everybody's going to have it, you got to boil it down to its base, the most base ingredient, which is survival. But we're talking about
thriving is what we're talking about, not surviving. You're not going to die if I take away your right to vote.
So we're talking about the difference between. I'm lost on the point you're trying to make. I mean, I understand the difference between surviving and living. Existing and living a life. I know the difference because I've done them both, but what I'm getting at is that,
we're talking about the internet and how it fits into our way of life, and the answer to that is everything, everywhere. It fits into all aspects of our lives at this point. And how does that fit into the basic concepts of everybody being equal and having an equal shot in this country? Right? When we talk about the laws that we create, the Constitution that we adhere to sometimes, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about putting together a system where everybody has an equal voice, everybody has equal chance for happiness.
But we don't live in that system. Do we all make the same amount of money?
That's okay, but what I'm talking about is...
Wait a minute. No. That has nothing to do with this. We're talking about opportunities, right? I mean...
Well,
access to the internet has become everything. If you can't apply for a job online anymore... People look at you weird when you just walk in and say, "I'd like to fill out an application."
We don't even have them in my work anymore. We just tell them to go online.
Right.
And just this is what I was trying to say. The internet is not required for survival.
No.
But in American society,
that's not the bar that we set.
In American society, in the year 2017, it is required if you want to thrive.
Yes.
Right? If that's the point you were trying to make, I totally get that point. But at the same time, as fucked up as this is going to sound, even the most low-bottom motherfucker I know can get some sort of government phone, even if it doesn't have, with the plan that the government gives you, so many minutes, so many, text messages, whatever. If it's Wi-Fi capable, you can go to a fucking McDonald's parking lot, sit in a parking lot and use their Wi-Fi.
And we're making this argument. We've never heard the debate of electricity's not a right. Your electricity gets shut off. People's power gets shut off all the time. A lot of people will sit in the dark till their next bill comes. We don't have that argument.
But there are, and I know this from living in upstate New York. I don't know about Michigan, but I know in New York, they can't shut your heat off in the winter. Mm-hmm. Now, the minute it gets above a certain temperature, and that's the average temperature for that time of year, they'll shut your gas off in a heartbeat. Mm. But they won't do it in the dead of winter because they know you'll freeze to death.
No, but
I can see that being
there's
more
a difference
of a right,
though,
because extreme environment can harm you.
Sure, that does tie directly into basic survival, but it's not about whether having electricity in your house is a right. It's about whether having access to that electricity is a right. And it is. If you've got residents somewhere in your state, you have to run wires to them so they get electricity.
Yeah, I was going to say that's you can build a house as nice and big as you want it, but if you don't have electricity running to it, you ain't going to be able to sell that motherfucker or live in it legally, at least. I mean, that's bottom line. You can't just build a house in the middle of 20 acres with no electricity and move the fuck in unless you live in the middle of butt fuck nowhere. I mean, that's they inspect houses before they sell them for a reason. It's not just to make sure that your foundation isn't cracked or some shit. It's to make sure you can receive everything that you are supposed to receive in that house. Like you said, that you have access to it. It doesn't mean you can afford it. Mm-hmm. You can buy a big-ass house and can't afford to turn the lights on. There's plenty of people that's happened to.
Right. Well, but my point is that if we're going to have a discussion about what we enjoy as basic rights, how we understand basic, not survival, but something beyond that, actually prospering, then that scope goes way beyond just surviving to the next day. And there's plenty of examples of that go beyond this internet conversation. We've got the basics covered of, we have a military to make sure that other countries just don't walk in here and kill everybody and take over the land, right? That's a basic right that we would like to enjoy, the freedom to not be invaded by somebody else. So that ties directly into your day-to-day survival. The same way that you need food and air and water, you need somebody to not shoot you. But when we talk about what do we want to see as a standard for life for not just survival, and a lot of people use words like happiness. It's not about happiness. You can't make everybody happy. You can guarantee every opportunity in the world and still end up with an unhappy person. That's not something that the government should even be concerned about. I'm not even sure, I guess, what the right words for it are, other than the ability to thrive if you step up to it, right? It's not about being guaranteed some basic level of comfortability in your life. It's about having a system set up so that anybody who does apply themselves can see results from that are equal and even to the results that anybody else would see in this country, regardless of race or gender or anything. So is the internet a utility?
So then why isn't it just free?
It should be. It really should be.
But then we start getting into so then electricity should be free. They should pump water into our homes for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our homes should be heated for free.
I'm listening. Well, I mean, look, free internet would not be free internet. Let's understand what we're talking about when we say free. It'd be tax subsidized.
I was going to say, I had free internet. It was called Net Zero. That shit sucked. That was, for you youngins out there, that's when you actually had to have a landline and call up a number to fucking connect to the internet. Look, to try to bring this back around to the original topic, because we like to wander. We really need a fucking like a shepherd here with us today, because we're just wandering all over the field.
I think this is directly applicable to what we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, look,
that's at the core of the net neutrality issue.
In just for, you know, I've heard more people than not argue for net neutrality, and I know their arguments. The people who argue against it, I've yet to hear the closest I've come to, in my opinion, to an argument that makes sense is the argument that you laid out, Aaron. Most people, when this issue comes up, who are like, well, fuck, we don't need net neutrality. The only reason they say that is because they're fucking right-leaning or they're Republicans. It's become a partisan issue. It's like everything else in this country. There's no issue that we can't turn into a fucking left versus right.
Well, no, I think it should be a partisan issue if they're going to be consistent, because it's about regulation. So why would a Republican like it? They're anti-regulation.
Yeah, okay, and there's states' rights until it comes to marijuana and abortion. I expect some things out of my government. Consistency is not one of them. I mean, that's asking too much. That's a bridge too far, bro. You just can't. I mean, hey, homosexual sex is a sin and it should be punishable by laws. And then you find the guy smoking meth with more dicks in him than a fucking, Kardashian in a state prison. I mean, what the fuck, man?
Trust me, Aaron, I had the same thought about voting rights. It's like, the party that loves regulations doesn't really love them so much when it comes to voting. It's a show full of irony today, folks.
I think we can look at a pretty close model of how internet technology is rolled out in the marketplace when we look at the proliferation of cell phones. Now, the idea that we can be reachable and call anyone in just about any situation as long as we remember to charge our cell phone from anywhere in this country, damn near, pretty well universally accepted as, I'm not going to say it's a basic right, but it's something that is relatively easily accessible and even in some cases subsidized by the government for people. Now, if we look at how the history of that is played out, we're all old enough to remember getting our first cell phones, having ridiculous plans, having to keep track of minutes, having to, pay roaming fees for these going outside of the ridiculously small networks.
We're not realizing that those text messages cost money.
Right. All of this shit. And all these little ways where, you're getting your bill and looking at it and going, what the fuck? How did my bill get this high?
$700.
This is getting out of control. Well, I mean, even outside of like extravagant charges like that,
I paid that motherfucker. That one hurt though.
Even if you got like a regular bill, you were just like,
a rough couple months.
It seemed like this constant battle between you and your cell phone provider over what you could get out of them and how much you had to pay for it. And what we see now is, access has come way down price-wise. I can pay $30, $35 to Cricket, or I can pay $80 to AT&T, but I'm getting the same core service either way. I'm getting the same signal everywhere I go. I have the same access to the internet and the same quality phone calls. Eventually, the market figured itself out on what it could get away with charging and what their customers really wanted. Now, very little of that had to do with the government stepping in and regulating this. This is a market finding its stasis, finding its point where it was agreed upon on both sides what their service was worth. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with internet access in this country. You know, I mean, unfortunately, we've seen the situation where instead of having, like with cell phone providers, they started popping up all over the place. Even outside of your big companies like Verizon and AT&T and Sprint, you have many other smaller companies that are just basically piggybacking on those same networks. So competition has opened up drastically, and the market has adjusted. And I don't hear anybody going to their congressman saying, you need to reduce my cell phone bill. You need to control how they're regulating my cell signal. It's because the market figured it out. And it does in most cases. When it can't be when it can't be self-regulating, that's why we have a government to step in to enforce regulations. I don't see an example of where anything that's gone on with how the internet has blossomed in this country is an example for tighter regulations on it. The internet is finding its stasis point. And if anything, this idea that 80% of this people, that statistic thrown around a lot, or numbers near that don't want to see the net neutrality regulations go away, well, their voice may not be heard by their government. That's kind of a whole separate issue. In relation to how it affects the internet, this tells the people the internet service providers, what their customers are expecting and what they will put up with. Because there's a certain point nearing in Comcast's future where they are going to have to look at real competition. And they are going to look at how they price their product and how they handle their customers, things that they feel like they have a lot of control on now.
Look at the pizza industry.
So
you could draw that parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Before the year 2000, paying $20 for a large pepperoni pizza was the norm. Now if you charge it, people look at you like, does a hand job come with that pizza?
And the reason that pizza places are popping up everywhere, nice alliteration, is that the profit margin was like higher than any other food product you could make. You know, they're putting like a couple bucks worth into a pizza and charging you $20 for it. And people were paying it until somebody came in and disrupted that market. And, you know, the government didn't come in and go, people are paying way too much for pizza.
Yeah.
we gotta figure out a way to keep these prices in line.
See, also, yeah, you can pay $5-6 for a pizza, but it's going to taste like a $5-6 pizza. I mean, that's all there is to it.
That's another way where the market adjusts. And look, I can pay.
Well, it's the same way with the internet.
I can pay $25.
I can give Comcast $25 a month. My internet's going to suck.
Right.
But I'd rather give them $80 a month.
Here's what I don't know, and maybe one of you guys will, and if not, then this is just yet another in a long list of times I wish Jay was here. It's not like these internet companies are having to shell out millions to get the infrastructure for the internet, put in place anymore. I mean, Christ, right. I was making fiber optic cables in New York 20 years ago, and we were shipping them out like they were going. We couldn't keep up with the demand. So, I mean, I know that most metropolitan areas, they're good to go as far as that, as of right now. All right, yes, there's upkeep. I get that. But how much does it really cost an internet provider to give you 100 download speed and let's say 20 upload speed versus 5 and 2? Does it really cost them more money? I mean, water is a physical product. So, and electricity, comes from something.
But there is a physical product here. I mean, the internet's not physical, but it takes physical things to make the internet. You need a lot of power and a lot of resources in order to provide that internet for all these people. So
servers.
It's not that it necessarily costs more in any more than, like, if I'm operating my television at a peak time where everybody else is watching their television and I'm paying a premium like everybody else for those kilowatt hours, it's not because it costs the electric company that much more. It's because there's a certain limit to those resources, and you have to have a market price in order to throttle that demand. I mean, they try this with traffic too. There's cities that are experimenting with variable rate toll roads or high capacity lanes, where if you want to ride in the high capacity lane and you're just one guy going to work, then you can do that, but you got to pay us $10, $20, $30. You know, it's. See, there's only so much bandwidth ultimately that they could supply to everyone.
See, because
having a pricing structure allows somebody to go, well, you know what? I don't need all of that. I don't need 100 megs. All I'm doing is watching Netflix, and I'm living alone, so I'll get the smaller package.
I just flashed back to the evening of 9/11, 2001, when I finally got home from work, and they were saying on the news, like, if you don't need to go on the internet, don't go on the internet. You know, blah 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 blah. You know, we're having a national crisis. We don't need our speeds bogged down. Well, of course, I don't give a fuck. I hopped on the internet. There was no bogged down speeds that I could see. This was on dial-up. I was going through phone lines at this point. I mean, it was to me. It's like
but servers can crash, and even
I get it. But what I'm saying is, to me, it just seems like we're putting a price on something that's not tangible. It's not physical, and we're going, well, because it costs money to produce it. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. But all the infrastructure's already there. The servers are already there. The servers are going to run no matter what. I mean, it's not like, oh, Aaron signed up for 100 meg internet. We better get another server in here. That's not how it works.
No, but you do have to, like any business, you have to figure out, you know, who your customers are, what they're willing to pay, and what services they actually need, and then put together a system that can provide those services. And that's what servers are. It's not like I built a whole building full of machines, and now that can supply all the internet for everyone in perpetuity. I mean, just outside of maintenance, you have to decide, how many servers do we need? How much is that going to cost us? What's the upkeep daily on these machines? There's a definite physical cost to that.
No, I mean, I understand. I don't know what you call it, a server farm. I don't know. Where you go in the basement, there's a ton of servers, and it's like fucking ice cold because they have to keep it cold because it's so fucking hot. Those machines run so hot. I've been in there. I've seen it. I mean, I understand that part. But at a point, there's got to be a cap to it. It can't just be like, oh, there's 100,000 people that signed up in this area, so that's going to drive everything up. I mean, these are major corporations who have known about this for decades now and have planned ahead.
You know what that cap is? 5G.
What the fuck is 5? I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to fucking derail us, but I know
we have 4G
generation.
Right now.
Yes, fifth generation. But what's going to be so revolutionary about how it's delivered to us?
We used to just get a cell signal into our phones. Right, and then maybe you had a Wi-Fi capable one that you could hook up, but then we started getting the actual ability to compress other forms of data greatly and beam that across these wireless lines. And that's how we started getting 3G and 4G. And 5G is just the next step in that. Every generation of this wireless data protocol has become tenfold more efficient. And 5G is going to be so efficient that it's going to overpower the amount of data that can go through a cable line. I don't think it's gonna beat out like DSL and cable. Probably not. If you're getting fiber optic, that's probably still going to be faster, but that's not the majority of internet users out there. They're not getting it over fiber optic lines. Majority is DSL and cable. So here's a wireless technology that requires no company to run anything into your home or you buy any special product or box or anything to receive it. It's just beamed the same way that the internet is beamed to your phone. So, and Verizon is rolling this out next year, and they're testing out markets. This is already proven technology. They're just figuring out how does it work in the real world and, how much they can charge for it. That's not going to take very long at all. So by 2019, you're probably going to have an option to, if you want to just pay Verizon to get your internet and it goes into your phone no matter where you are, or it goes right into your home, goes right into your TV, goes right into your computer. You don't have to have any other lines available. You don't have to have somebody come out and show their butt crack to you while they drill a hole in the side of your building.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Penetrate me with all your internets.
Right.
On
and,
every
as
orifice.
a side note, too, it's interesting because I haven't dealt with Verizon in years, but I did have a cell phone through them. Had no problems with the service, great service at the time as far as me operating my phone. The customer service side, well, they had the similar attitude as Comcast. Well, we're fucking Verizon. What are you going to do? Like, you came to us because you wanted the best cell phone network in the country. So where do we go from here? There's the price. If not, there's the door. They had no reason to even see, AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile or anybody else that popped up as real competition. They had, for the longest time, the strongest market. Now we've seen that change. We've seen, if you live anywhere near a major city, you have your choice of cell phone providers. Your coverage is damn near nationwide, regardless of who you decide to go with. So at a certain point, Verizon had to rethink how they were handling their customers. And my ex, who still has Verizon, was telling me about an experience that she had with them. My son I took him out to my parents' place out in the sticks, and there was no Wi-Fi out there, and he watched a few videos, and
he's like, Dad, I want to leave immediately.
He watched a few videos with his cousins and just wiped out his whole data plan in like 2 hours. In like 2 hours, right, for the whole month, And my ex is calling me like, "What the hell just happened? Like, I have no data anymore, and now it's going to cost me all this." Well, she talked to Verizon, and Verizon was they were very much willing to work with her. They wanted to keep her as a customer. This was their actions spoke of a business that understands that they have competition, not like when I call Comcast and they go, "What are you going to do, DSL?" So, they said, "Oh, we can bump your plan up just for the month, and then it automatically goes down to your regular plan just so that you can cover this data, and we're willing to forgive this much that you went over." They worked with her because she has been consistently giving them hundreds upon thousands of dollars over I think she's been with them for like 8-9 years now. So it's just interesting to me to see that Verizon is kind of rethinking the way it handles its customers because they understand that not only are they going to have the opportunity to now take away a lot of customers from Comcast that are dissatisfied with their experience and have a product that will actually compete with what Comcast can provide, but they're not going to be alone in this 5G market either. Everybody who's got satellites flying around is going to be prepared to start beaming the internet down in 5G format.
See, to me, it's just another thing like 4K that I'll get around to in about 5-10 years. I'll be the last one. Dude, I had a 3G phone 2 years ago. Okay, I mean, I'll be the last one with a 4G phone.
Well, sure. I mean, there's always going to be guys that need to be on the bleeding edge of technology. Like they come out with, oh, there's a 5K, there's an 8K TV. I've got 12K. You know, that's great, but you don't even have like anything that can play that.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. It's like my one buddy who got a Laserdisc player and he had one movie and it was Empire Strikes Back. And every time we come over, he go, "You want to watch Empire?" And I'm like, "No, dude, no." But look how clear the picture is. I don't give a fuck. I've seen Darth Vader as clear as I ever want to see him. Right. Can we watch something else?
but eventually, you know, as the technology progresses, you're not even making that as a decision, right? When you bought your last cell phone, they didn't ask you do you want it Wi-Fi capable? No. It's just a given.
No, in fact, Pops, my buddy's dad, will not touch a smartphone. I mean, almost literally. Like, he'll hand you your phone, but if you ask him to do something, he's like, I'm confused, and he throws it down, and he's just like, I can't do it. So he still has a flip phone. He lost his flip phone like 3 months ago. They took him phone shopping. They had to go to 3 different stores to find a flip phone for him with the big enough fucking numbers and shit. I mean, he doesn't even have a keyboard. He doesn't even have a QWERTY keyboard. When he texts, he's hitting buttons 3 times to get to the letter he wants. Right. I mean, it's just, and he's so happy with it. And I'm like, no matter what, until that generation dies off, there will always be a sliver of a market, but it'll be there for people like that. So I mean, I get that, but it's just like the first time I bought a high def TV. I didn't buy a high def TV because I wanted one. I bought one because I walked in and said, "Hey, my old fucking tube TV blew up and I need a new one." And they were like, "Here you go." And I'm like, "Where's your tube TVs?" And the guy's like, "We don't sell those anymore."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And he's like, "This is blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Can I hook a gaming console up to it?" "You can hook your computer up to it." Great. Give it to me for that price and let me go. I don't need the bells and whistles.
Not the same way, but so my 40-inch projection I got off of Craigslist died. Hey, I need a TV. Well, all we have are these now. Okay.
Right. So to kind of put a bow on this subject then, that's my basic take on the net neutrality issue, is that eventually, because we're all looking at this in the aspect of Comcast being one of the bigger companies that is involved in this issue, as being the big player and assuming that they will always be the big player, but the technology is going to change. And the people who are pro getting rid of net neutrality regulations, like what's his name, Ajit Pai, I forget what his last name is.
Bucktooth Indian dude, whatever.
Right, that dude, Ajit Pai, I think. He's saying that, you know, the whole reason that he wants to get rid of these regulations is because he wants to promote growth in the industry for new technologies, and it's kind of difficult to argue against that when you've seen so little growth in that aspect. I mean, I agree with you. If Comcast is pushing for this, they're not altruistic. There's something in it for them, and there should be. You know, I'm not saying that Comcast shouldn't be allowed to make a profit based on providing internet to people, but I don't know ultimately what that is, because if you're saying pricing. Yeah, but the market doesn't play out in the market.
I would not care about net neutrality one way or the other if there was 6 cable companies available no matter where you went.
Right.
And you called and you said, I need cable. You're my first call. Give me an offer. And then you could call the other 5 and shop for the best price. But that's just not the reality at this point in time.
But it's right around the corner.
No, well,
it's literally around the corner where you can, if you want to watch TV, you say, I want to watch The Walking Dead. I don't have access to it, so I'm going to call one of 6 wireless providers that can beam 5G directly into my home. Find out who's got the best pricing structure and setup for my needs.
So if you're correct, basically what we're doing with this whole net neutrality thing is we're sitting in a Blockbuster in 2005 arguing why we can't get VHS tapes instead of DVDs. Like, we're right on the cusp of the type of internet that we get and how we get it being obsolete.
I think we're more like standing in the Blockbuster wondering why they don't get Blu-rays, not understanding that it's just going to be better to have it beamed in your house anyway.
Okay.
There you go.
Or going to Blockbuster in 2012 instead of just fucking getting Netflix.
Hey, there you go.
Right. We're still thinking... We're not looking past our own nose on this issue.
Well, I mean, guys, for our own sake as a podcast, because I've heard all the doomsday preppers when it comes to this subject, they annoy me. Like, I don't think the world's going to end. I don't think this is the government snatching your rights away from you. None of that bullshit. But I mean, I do see. I didn't know about the 5G thing until this conversation. And you have to understand, not knowing about that, I'm just like, I see a lot of room for fuckery here. And I see places where it could be like, oh, well, because first of all, Netflix, Amazon, Google, these are billion, trillion-dollar corporations. They're going to be fine. It's the small guys, the small content providers that are going to be fucked. And I was picturing 6 months from now, I connect with you guys to do a show, and I hear we have to have a talk from Chris. And since I'm not fucking Chris, I know that he's not breaking up with me, but I know that we have to have a talk never ends well for me. So I was just imagining, Jesus, dude, they want like $300 for the internet we need to do this. I can't afford that. Mm-hmm. Can you all afford it? And at that point, it's like blood and semen. What's that going for? And to be honest with you listeners, I love doing the show. I'm happy for everyone that listens. I'm kind of attached to my body parts and my organs. I don't want to give them up just for your entertainment. I'm not Jesus. I don't want to die for your sins. So
right. Yeah. I mean, I could understand being fearful of regulations going away if we're looking at a static market with set monopolies that aren't going anywhere. But that's not what we're looking at.
Well, then, hey, you know what? If any goods come of this show,
in flux.
If any goods come of this show tonight, you've put my mind at ease much more than it was before the conversation started. So,
yeah, I mean, and I think my cell phone analogy is valid because think about the access that you have to information through your cell phone now compared to where that used to be even, 5 years ago. You've got way more bang for your buck. You've got way more features. You're paying almost nothing for your phone in most cases, and you're getting a great product. There's very few people that are still complaining about their cell phone bill. And it wasn't the government coming in and saying, hey, wait a minute, we need cell phone neutrality here. We need to make sure that we have regulations that give people equal access to this. This is really important. It just didn't happen that way. And it doesn't, because that's not, like, regulations happen after a market is stabilized and you can see results from it and start judging on whether, whether a bigger hand needs to be applied to make sure that, our cars are safe. That we don't have metal dashboards that split our forehead in half when we rear end somebody anymore, And if you start regulating during the growing process, you're going to end up with some mutated product. I don't know. But, yeah, I think we said enough on this.
Something can't grow if you're restricting it constantly.
Yeah. So, speaking of monopolies, let's look at Disney.
They now own Fun. Disney has officially bought, copyrighted, and trademarked Fun.
Next time you laugh,
you owe Disney a nickel.
Because of their acquisition of Fox Studios and part of Fox Sports, you didn't hear that they also acquired the rights to all your favorite porn tube sites and Fleshlight. So yes, you can't even jerk off without the mouse's permission at this point.
You can't laugh without paying Disney anymore.
Yeah. Well, I masturbated. Trademark Disney. Yes.
So Disney has put in a bid to buy a huge chunk, just about all the movie and TV products that Fox produces. And this is kind of a big deal and is going to take a while to flesh out. I read a story today that said it could easily take 12 to 18 months just for them to finalize this deal.
Well, doesn't it also have to go through, the antitrust oversight committee or some shit?
The government is going to have to take a look at it and decide if this makes Disney an unfair competitor closing in on a monopoly in the entertainment industry.
Maybe?
I mean, it's kind of interesting because as much as they're swallowing up all these known properties that everybody has a lot of attachment to, if we're talking about competition, well, the definition of what Disney's competition has expanded greatly because, I mean, Netflix is their competition now. And it's more than just, do I decide to go out and pay $10 to see a movie or just stay in and watch Netflix on the $10 for that month that I've already paid in. It's about what does Disney want to do in the future. They see the Netflix model as definitely a successful one, and they want to have the content to go up against Netflix. And that's what this acquisition is about. So, I don't think that if you're worried about Disney becoming a monopoly, it's not going to mean that less independent movies are made, that other studios are making less movies because all of them are being made by Disney. No. I mean, they're starting to corner the market on what we've broadly identified as genre movies and TV shows. Basically anything related to horror, superheroes, fantasy, sci-fi, what have you. But that's still a subsection of the movie market in general, right? So I don't know that this. Well, first of all, I don't think that the government is going to shut this down. This is going to go through. I mean, there's a reason why people like Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, has paid a lot of money to Trump and other Republicans' campaigns. He wants them to look out for his interests. And that's going to happen in this case. There may be a big show of concern over Disney possibly being too big for its britches, but ultimately this is going to go through.
They're going to own part of The Simpsons?
They're going to, yeah. I was talking about this at work today. I was like, they're going to be able to make the most insane Kingdom Hearts game ever. It'll be, I mean, they already have all their Disney stuff, Star Wars, Marvel. Now they can incorporate Simpsons, Avatar, Aliens, the X-Files. What else? I know there's others that I'm missing too.
You say Star Wars?
Yeah, this is Star Wars.
See, that's a good point. I think because Star Wars is such a huge franchise, obviously, as we sit on the eve of the latest movie being released.
Yep, I already bought my ticket.
Oh, fuck. Is this going to be one of the movies I got to go see in the theater so we can talk about it next week?
It's getting rave reviews.
Can I get a write-off on this? Jesus. But anyways.
Yeah, bring me a receipt. I'll give you money. I'll write that bitch off when I do my taxes in a month or so.
Oh, you just guaranteed I'm going to the Imagine now. Shit. But no.
Upgrade me to 4D.
Yeah, no shit. No, I want the jumbo size, my foot's going to fall off the minute I finish it drink, and the, oh my God, I can't finish all that popcorn. That's the size, I want that plan.
Can I have the heart attack and diabetes combo, please?
Yes.
That sounds like a good time to me. Yeah,
we're legally not allowed to sell this to anyone over 45.
Predator and Alien, them now owning. Those type franchises, I don't know how geeked I am for them owning those type franchises because Disney really doesn't do horror well. If you've ever been to Disney World in Florida, the Haunted Mansion ain't all that haunted.
Well, right? That's interesting.
The next Alien ends with Ripley and the alien just hugging it out.
Yeah, skipping off the Epcot Center and shit. I mean, no, I don't want to see that.
I think we're seeing a different Disney though than the ones that the Disney that we grew up with. Disney used to have a specific meaning in entertainment that was family. If Disney put their name on something, anyone in the family can go. Nobody's going to be freaked out by anything. And they hung their hat on that for decades. And I don't think that that's the same Disney. Sure, I don't think that the main, a Disney animated picture, what that entails isn't going to change any. But in the same way that ultimately Disney is buying up, they're buying up, what's the term? Licenses. They're buying up characters. They're buying up known products.
Properties, yeah.
Properties, yes. I think that's the word I was looking for. They're buying these properties that are known to have a certain value to them, and that's what they want out of it. Bob Iger was quoted as saying that Disney acquiring Deadpool doesn't necessarily mean that will change. That means that there won't be any more R-rated Deadpool movies. They didn't necessarily say that they're not going to go that route. But if you believe that they acquired Fox in order to make more money, then why would they fuck with a film that was made for, I don't know, $100, maybe less, $1 million and made over $800 million? Regardless of the fact that, if Disney produced that film, there's no way that Deadpool would be cutting off somebody's head and punting it like a football. But it's already been established that, well, that's what Deadpool is, right? That's why people came out to see it. And when they acquired Star Wars, the reason that the current crop of Star Wars movies are successful is because they are Star Wars movies. They are not Disneyfied versions.
I could.
No more than Star Wars has ever been.
I won't say Disneyfied. I'll say Disney did something that I don't think it ever crossed Lucas's mind to do, which is Disney tends to cater to the, what do you call it? Diversity crowd. I mean, even if you look at the prequels, it's not that diverse. You look at Rogue One, that was a fucking rogues gallery of just every nationality and accent you could throw in there.
I think that's more of the sign of the times than Disney putting their thumb on the scale when it comes to putting together a cast for a movie.
Oh, do not get me wrong. I'm not criticizing that.
Oh, no, I hear you.
What I'm saying is, absolutely. I just think Disney's much more aware of diversity than someone like Lucas would be, and I don't think Lucas is like, George Lucas likes money, obviously. I don't think he's like, fuck them darkies. I don't want their dollars. He'll take anybody's money if you're giving it to him. I just think Disney, because they're a business, and it's not, now Star Wars is coming from a corporate, it's a corporate owned property, and it's not necessarily as much of a brainchild of one man and a handful of people that are close to him. Mm-hmm. I think since there's more cooks in the kitchen, you're going to get more variety in the food, is what I'm getting at. And I think that will be the stamp Disney leaves on Star Wars. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I remember as a kid, I was always thinking, why aren't there female, like, pilots during the space battles and stuff? I mean, Princess Leia is a general.
Now.
She's a general. How the fuck did you get to be a general if you never fought? What part of the military? You the dishwasher in charge? I mean, what the fuck were you doing to be a general? I swear to God, I remember thinking that I didn't sit there and, start a movement about it, go make like Princess Leia pussy hats and shit and go march on Washington, but it did cross my mind. And believe me, now they got female stormtroopers, and I'm like, how the fuck? I thought they were all clones, but whatever. All right.
Yeah, aren't they all clones of Jango Fett?
Well, I guess. And apparently Finn, Jango Fett, must have had a darker relative than even him in his family tree somewhere, because Finn looks nothing like Jango Fett. So, but no, all jokes aside and stuff, I'm not worried about Star Wars with Disney. I'm not worried about Marvel. They've proven they can handle Marvel. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm sure there's some DC fans that are like, Disney, can you buy DC too?
Well, I think, Marvel's a better example than Star Wars, though, of what the point that I was trying to make. Because Star Wars, they had to come in and kind of restart this engine. Whereas Marvel established itself as a movie, as a viable movie, production company, and then was bought out by Disney, right? Disney didn't come in and buy out Marvel properties and then make Iron Man. They made Iron Man. They made the Hulk movie with Universal Pictures and started,
Thor, didn't they?
And Thor, and started laying out this plan for this whole universe. And Disney saw that and said, "Yeah, that's something that we want a piece of.
That's something we didn't.
We want all of it."
Yeah, we didn't had nothing to do with creating this, but we'll buy it and cash in on it.
Sure. And, I don't think that's... Who knows how much that's changed what the Marvel Cinematic Universe looks like. I would like to think very little, because it seems like there's a cohesiveness. There was no hiccup in the Marvel Universe when Disney bought it. They didn't want a hiccup in it. They're like, we see this going somewhere big, and we just want to get in on the ground floor of it.
I'd go so far as to say, in the current generation of the Marvel Universe, Cinematic Universe, the only thing close to a hiccup they had was Iron Man 2, period.
Right.
They've been pretty consistent all the way through. With Iron Man being the low point, Iron Man 2 being the low point is what I'm saying.
Well, sure. There may have been creative missteps here and there, but as far as, there wasn't a point where they said, okay, now that you're a Disney property, we have to stop and refocus what we want to do. They didn't they didn't acquire it with the intention of changing the direction. So I don't know. I think that as we see Disney expand as a company, I think they're understanding that there can be divisions, whereas everything that was Disney was just Disney, right? Even when they acquired Pixar, they acquired it because, well, first of all, because it kind of lined up with what they already did. Pixar was just doing the Disney thing better at the time, and that's why they acquired it. That was an easy fit. But now that they own so many different properties, I think they can feel like they can still have their squeaky clean family entertainment Disney brand, and understand that there's other brands that they own that aren't family friendly, and that's fine. There's still an audience for that. There's certain things that, we're probably not going to see any of the crop of X-Men make its way into the Marvel Universe outside of possibly Deadpool. Deadpool is the only thing that's currently established that Fox has done with a comic book property that has a future, because I mean they didn't figure out Logan until they were pretty much done. That they will. That's the only thing that's previously established that they will want to continue on. Everything else they kind of have to rebuild from scratch anyway. So who knows? Well, I guess only time is going to tell on this. As a fan, like putting aside any concerns for how big Disney is getting as a company and how much of my own personal childhood they may own, that I think it's just if they get Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles and that's it. Like I don't think there's anything left.
There you go, man. Transformers.
Oh yeah, that's right. Transformers.
I think the Transformers movies and the G.I. Joe movies pretty much killed those franchises.
Yeah.
For this generation, it's going to have to be another 5-10 years before they reboot them.
Yeah. But putting all that aside, you know, there's definitely part of me that is very hopeful for a really good Fantastic Four movie, because that's what this ultimately, I mean, as much as I love the X-Men and want to see them done right, and I am excited at the possibility of them existing in the same universe as all the other Marvel heroes, the Fantastic Four has been the most heartbreaking one, because as an adult and going back and reading about the history of Marvel Comics, reading older Marvel Comics stuff that was put out before I was born, you know, I have a path as a fan that starts out and heavily is entrenched in the X-Men. That was the X-Men and the New Mutants. That was my entrance into the world of comic books, and then there'll always be something central to there.
Aaron, just go ahead and let your inner downriver guy hang out and say that's your shit.
That's my shit.
Or as ghetto as he gets, folks.
Or as the kids now, they say ride or die. I'm ride or die on the X-Men. But as a fan of Marvel Comics in general and the whole history of these heroes and the bigger story, I mean, the Fantastic Four are right at this. I mean, the X-Men were an anomaly. The X-Men were the freaks that gained some traction. Fantastic Four is the core of the Marvel Universe. And it's been kind of bizarre to have them just not even be dramatically killed off, just kind of go away. You know, it didn't happen all at once. And there was definitely a corporate directive to say, hey, we're not so concerned about properties that we can't develop into movies.
Oh, definitely.
But, you know, eventually, and they weren't big selling comic books anyways, for whatever reason, and that definitely has something to do with it. But eventually the Fantastic Four comic books went away. And even though those characters were central to the last big, well, not the last big line of this. Last one was Secret Wars, but the one before that, or no, the last one was Secret Empire. It was Secret Wars before that. Secret Wars all kind of revolved around the Fantastic Four. They were central to the development of the story and to how everything played out in there. But that was also kind of the swan song for the Fantastic Four. They've been kind of spotty in the comic books as characters over the last 2 years, and there's been no Fantastic Four book. There's been no sign of actually Mr. Fantastic or Sue Storm in the Marvel Universe. And yeah, I guess it's just, it feels like this gap, this hole that was left in Marvel in general that can now come back home. I mean, maybe like even if Marvel makes a Fantastic Four movie and it sucks as bad as the ones Fox were doing, at least they are going to be, you know, back where they belong in the comic books. That's ultimately what I'm concerned with. As much as I love all these movies, you know, I am a fan of comic books in general, but let's face it, You can tell if you look through my collection, it's more Marvel than anything else. So yeah, there's kind of a homecoming feeling that I feel hopeful for in this. Maybe I'm just getting my hopes up to be dashed by corporate greed like they usually are. Disney will fuck me in the long run after I give them hundreds more of my dollars.
Well, Michael Bay's going to direct all of the Star Wars movies till the end of time.
No, that's J.J. Abrams. I think they contracted him for the next 20. I'm with you up until I think that they're going to finish this last phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now when they reboot it, not only are they going to find new actors to play these roles, but I think it's going to be a reboot to where they're going to bring in the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and it's going to be a shared universe just like it is in the comic books. And I'm the minute I heard about this, I'm like, okay, how long until they start talking about mutants on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Because they couldn't use the word mutant. They had to use what was it? Something else, but
Inhumans, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that went over like a turd in a punch bowl. Is that even still on, or was that a Netflix show or something?
Inhumans didn't do too well. It was a limited series, but there's still Inhumans in general, as a species, are still central to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. story.
Okay.
But Inhumans have just as deep a history with the Marvel Universe as mutants do. They just didn't catch on in the same way. And when Marvel realized that by giving away the rights to mutants in general, it dried up a spring that they had been tapping for decades in order to create new characters. You didn't have to come up with some crazy origin story anymore. It's like, I don't know, they hit puberty and they got powers, and the mutants just started popping up everywhere. Every time you need an extra character for something, they're a mutant. So when they didn't have that to draw from anymore, they went with the Inhumans, saying, well, this is basically the same thing. There's some process that they can't control that just mysteriously happens to them, and they turn into somebody with powers. But, you can't... That's like trying to take the core elements of what the X-Men are and try and just recreate that. I can make a movie about somebody, not call them mutants, but just say that they're born with powers that come out when they hit puberty, and I won't be breaking any trademark laws or anything, but nobody's going to fucking see it because it doesn't have Professor X in it, or Wolverine, or Colossus, or Storm, or whoever the fuck my favorite character is, because that's ultimately what it is. It's not that you've got some unique ideas for what people with powers would look like. No, you have properties. You have known quantities. So that was, their failure on Inhumans is that it never caught on in the first place. There was no well to go back and tap.
Overall, I'm fairly geeked for Disney picking up the rights to the Marvel stuff. I hope that, because it was like a month ago we talked about the new Predator movie. Shane Black's writing it. I can't remember, but it was a director we all, I think you and I knew. And, we were like, that sounds like it's going to be a good movie. I just hope Disney is intelligent enough to go, all right, for things already in motion, keep your fingers out of it until need be. Don't go in and start saying, don't start trying to tell the cook what ingredients to put in his fucking food unless he turns to you and goes, I don't know what to do next. That's what I hope Disney does as far as that. But overall, I'm excited for it because, I didn't know the inner workings of who owned what when the first X-Men movie came out. But when Fantastic Four come out, it became pretty clear to me at that point that, they're not going to have crossovers here. This isn't going to be a shared universe type situation. And I was bummed out. And that's, honestly, growing up, Iron Man, fairly interested in. Captain America, give or take. It was always depending on who was writing and who was doing the art for me, whether I was into Captain America. And the rest of the Avengers, I could not have gave a fuck less about. I mean, to me, it was like you had Avengers on the East Coast who I ignored, and you had Avengers on the West Coast who I ignored. Those were the two comics. And I was just like, whatever. But once I saw what they were doing, I was like, all right, I can get down with this. So I think they've earned enough. They've earned enough, leeway from this half-assed fanboy to go, all right, I'll trust you until you give me a reason not to.
Right.
I do think the interesting part of this is, and this is, Chris, you'll understand why this is interesting. They picked up a lot of Fox Sports local affiliates with this deal also. So that means that they have rights to broadcast a lot of basketball games. They picked up the Yes Network and NESN Network, too. So they have Yankees, Red Sox. That's huge. I'm assuming
in sports.
Yeah. I mean, basically. I mean, and for me,
ESPN.
For me, the real interesting part is with all those local affiliates they pick up. That means they pick up the rights to broadcast. I think it's 15 NHL teams. So Disney has already they rolled the dice in the 90s on hockey with the Mighty Ducks movies, which were horrible. Now that I watch them as an adult, but whatever. And so, they'll take a chance. I'm wondering if now they're going to fucking use ABC, et cetera, to kind of try to push hockey out to the forefront.
Oh, if they buy the NHL.
Yeah.
As long as they fire Bettman, I'm good with it.
I think the bigger picture to look at here is the fact that Disney wants to grow as a company, right? And in order to do that, it's going to have to provide different types of entertainment. That they understand that there's markets outside of family-friendly entertainment, clearly, that need to be serviced. So,
okay, I draw the line at Disney-owned porn. That's it. Sorry, I don't want to see Ariel getting gangbanged by the Blacks on Blondes guys. I just don't want to see it.
Oh.
I'm good.
Well, stay off of 4chan
then. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have already saw it. So yeah,
maybe that's just sound advice, anyways.
It is.
Oh, I know one thing I wanted to bring up real quick.
Yes.
Because I think every year around this time we've done this. The 2018 inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they come out, and do you guys know who they inducted?
Fucking that poodle-haired motherfucker from New Jersey is the leading vote getter. I know that.
Obviously, Bon Jovi. Yeah, you got Bon Jovi, The Cars, Dire Straits, Moody Blues, Nina Simone, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
To me, the only band on there that actually has really any influence.
Oh wait, these are the decisions on who's getting.
Yeah, this is who's going in.
Yeah, this is who's going in. Yeah,
right. Because I think we talked about on the Weedsman the list of nominees.
Yes,
the actual inductees. Okay, the Cars. Yeah, Dire Straits. I don't know how you can argue with that. I mean,
influence.
A decent amount of hit songs and a hell of a lot of technical ability.
But they didn't have that much of an influence. They kind of sounded like everything that came out when they came out.
Dire Straits?
No.
Seriously, you think that?
I think you have to. If you've never listened beyond any of the radio hits of Dire Straits, I think you're missing out on quite a bit.
I mean, I think when I think of Mark
Love Over Gold is like kind of it's like a concept album.
Well, I mean when I think of Mark Knopfler playing guitar in Dire Straits,
yeah,
I think of what would to me, that his guitar playing in that band sounds like what Chet Atkins would have done in a rock band.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what Mark Knopfler's style of playing guitar is as influential as what bands like Steely Dan were doing, and the types of different musical influences that they were incorporating into their personal style. But if you want to talk about influence, just look at Mark Knopfler's guitar tone and then listen to everything that came after it that hit the radio. He made the sound of a clean Strat sound glorious, and everybody else tried to reproduce it. He did to guitar tone what Phil Collins and his engineer did to drums.
And which is ironic because what's his most famous riff? His most famous riff's Money for Nothing, and that's him on a Les Paul, which is
right.
The exact through a Marshall, which is the exact opposite of what he always played through.
But the lick that always goes through my head when I think Mark Knopfler is just Sultans of Swing, which is that tone that I'm talking about. But I see your point.
It's for me. It's So Far Away.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the same thing. Oh,
God, I love that song. Okay, so I think Dire Straits, and the Cars, I think those are both perfect examples of bands that were, not only produced hits, but were influential in what they were doing.
I just want to say, I think the Cars are criminally overlooked.
Yeah, I think the Cars, to me, fall into the category of they're not already in.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cars to me are the bridge between glam and new wave because they're 70s incarnation. They kind of almost had that like David Bowie shag haircut mixed with like New York Dolls, like dressing crazy and shit.
Yeah,
and then
they straddled the line definitely.
Yeah, and then then the MTV era, fucking forget it. It's hard for me to think of a band who profited more from early MTV than the Cars. I really can't. ZZ Top maybe. I mean, it's like there's two Cars. There's pre-MTV and there's post-MTV. It's just like there's two ZZ Tops. There's pre-MTV and there's post-MTV. But it's still, I would say, unlike ZZ Top, I actually like a lot of their post-MTV stuff.
Yeah. Well, in the same way that Mark Knopfler set a standard for guitar tone, Ric Ocasek set a standard for just the tone of a pop song in general. And there's something, I guess the Cars were a good example of how to incorporate technology into the way that you make music appropriately. We saw over the course of the 70s, technology in recording progress immensely. And a lot of people took advantage of that to make these bigger, crazier, layered pieces that, hey, we can use 24 tracks, we can use 48 tracks, let's fill them up. Let's do a couple more guitar overdubs, fuck it. Let's keep layering the vocals. And in the same way with, like, synthesizers and drum machines. They're like, oh, well, we don't have to pay any musicians. We just program all this shit, and we can just layer it up with lots of synths and drum sounds.
I'm just picturing someone in the 80s hitting an 808 going, it sounds just like a real drum set.
Right.
No, it doesn't, but okay.
Right. But I think that the Cars are an example of a band that was able to say, okay, we like a lot of these, cleaner, more present sounds that you can get from modern recording techniques and close miking and isolation. And we like some of these sounds that people are getting with synthesizers and drum machines. But how does that all service the song? Right? It was all these additions to technology that were taken advantage of by bands like the Cars. The bands that survived that weren't just hopping on some bandwagon. They were saying, that's great, it doesn't change my starting point from being like a decent song structure and a good melody that sticks with you. So how do we incorporate all that into what we're doing? And as far as production value, I mean, outside of that speaking volumes in the number of Cars hits, and I'm sure they still make plenty of music, or plenty of money off of that music library, but Ric Ocasek is still making hit records for people.
Yeah, I was going to say,
just first band called Weezer.
Yeah.
Yep.
The green one too. He did the blue one and the green one.
Yep. Like, I mean, and what are those albums, like 20 years old or more now? Like the Blue album?
Yeah, the Blue one's 1994. Yeah. That album's about to be 25 years old.
People still listen to that shit, and it still sounds like a modern rock record. There's nothing 90s or dated about that. It has a kind of timeless quality to it. It dates itself in its song structure, I would say, more than the production itself. You know, I mean, I love the Blue album, but I remember hearing it and being like, this is a good album, but, you know, there's a lot of Pixies in there.
There's a lot of Pixies and a lot of shit in the early 90s, man. Come on.
Right.
Nirvana wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for the Pixies.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Everyone was freaking out, like, I've never heard anything like Nirvana. I'm like, you've never listened to the fucking Pixies. And even Kurt Cobain says that. Like,
well, okay, so just to get off to move on to the others, Moody Blues. Okay, I have no problem with the hits of the Moody Blues. They've been staples of classic rock radio since I was drawing breath. But I can only name like Ride My Seesaw, Nights in White Satin, and that I can't even name the song, but I know it. They had a hit with it in the 80s. I don't know any other Moody Blues stuff. Thank you.
What about Question? You know Question?
If I heard it, maybe I would. But I not off the top of my head, no.
Moody Blues just seems like it gets in because people just still know who they are.
See, someone on another podcast made a case for him by saying they think that they were pretty much at the tip of the spear of the prog rock. I
was just about to say, the Moody Blues are the first band to sound like they sounded. That's probably why.
You know, like, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have the Alan Parsons Project. You wouldn't have King Crimson, I mean, they're contemporaries of the Moody Blues, but they definitely... When he made on the podcast I was listening to, when they made the case of King Crimson, I was like, I think that's more Robert Fripp's brainchild than he heard the Moody Blues and started King Crimson. I don't think it worked that way, but I can kind of see it. But I mean, I don't know much about them, so I'm just going to throw it out there and ask you guys: were they huge back in their day, or were they just like one-hit wonders who kind of came back and had another hit?
Well,
they were bigger in England than they were bigger here.
I think they were pretty big. Well, look. If my parents bought a record by them, they had to have been pretty big.
Oh, okay.
My parents' record collection was influential on me, but that's because that's what was available. And they had enough records to fit in a cabinet underneath the record player. I can't imagine living with that limited amount of musical resources at my fingertips, but... You know,
and I'm right there with you.
I think they own probably less than 80 records and multiple Carly Simon albums. So if the Moody Blues got in there, they must have been pretty big.
Gotcha. Okay, now this one's weird for me because obviously I know who Nina Simone is.
Yes,
but there's like I've picked up kind of a like. I don't want to say backlash or blowback, but almost like like people are like, oh God, really, Nina Simone? And is this one of those things because I don't know her personal story? Was she a controversial figure in her time or something? Because it seems like there's people who are just not happy with her being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I mean, it's
like
not
some
for the
kind of Jane Fonda residual grudge.
Yeah,
type
kind
of thing or something.
Kind of, yeah. And I mean, I'm going like I went through the mental Rolodex of all the music of hers I've heard.
Oh, found your answer.
What's up?
Wikipedia: American singer, songwriter, pianist, arranger, and activist in the civil rights movement.
Okay. See, I was going to say,
I think there's whether it's true racism or not, it can just go under the umbrella of, well, this is just another musician who thinks that they know politics.
Yeah, because I was going through the mental Rolodex of her music that I know, and I'm like, none of it is, I mean, we're not talking, this isn't Public Enemy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this isn't like going out on a limb politically type music that so I was just wondering on that one. And then, the last one, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Now, that's a do you guys know who she is?
I know who she is, but I'm ignorant of most of her material, I confess.
Yeah,
well, it's funny because it's been like in the last 2 years I've been seeing a lot of her old videos being posted by people because there was a real and it was always commentary with their videos when they would post them. They would, she's one of the overlooked pioneers of rock and roll, and the most famous video I can think of her, she's playing a 3-pickup Les Paul Custom, and it's like an old black and white video, and she's doing 50s style rock and roll, and apparently this is even like pre Chuck Berry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get the feeling that like somebody in her camp was like, hey, we need to get kind of that grassroots, let's bring her into the public consciousness. And then of course, I through looking up and reading up on her, apparently she was a lesbian, which was, I mean, I can't imagine, one, being in the public eye as a female, playing rock and roll, and being one of the first to do it, and being openly gay back in the 50s. I mean, that had to be like all types of scandalous back then. But I mean, still, it's not like she has a body of work.
Hey, black lesbian playing the guitar, like she just asked.
Man, she didn't want anyone to accept her.
Right.
No, I mean, dude, straight up. And when we talk, dude, the one video that just sticks out in my head, it's the Les Paul when they went to the double cutaway with the 3 pickups, and it's just strange to see someone in the 50s playing one of those, let alone a black woman playing rock and roll. And she's dressed like every stereotypical old black woman that goes to church I've ever seen. Like, seriously, she's got a church crown on and she's just jamming, and I'm like, oh, all right. But no, I think that's more of a, and it says she's inducted under the early influences. So obviously they understood this is going to be more of like a nod to her, what she did as far as being a pioneer and all that. And so, I mean, I more so than her body of work, I guess. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it points out the flaw in the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame system in general. I mean, if this was really just about rock and roll, then you would have started at the beginning and built your way up. But instead, we get Sister Rosetta Tharpe at the same time we get Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Which,
well, I mean,
why is his name even near?
Okay, hold on.
He didn't do nothing.
Hold on. To me, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's always been a bunch of different rooms. You have the pop stars who you knew were going to get in, the big sellers. You had the critical darlings. You had the underground people, and then you had the people who 90% of people were like, "Who the fuck is that?" Like a recording engineer or something that they would put in. At least they used to. They used to put in recording engineers, people like that. Bon Jovi, just on their record sales, you knew they were going in at some point. I mean, come on now. How could they? They let Kiss in.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
And I will make an argument all day that Bon Jovi brought more to the musical world than Kiss ever has.
Oh, Bon Jovi, but they both did the same thing. All they did was make the same music that everyone was making at the time. They just moved a lot of units.
Yeah, but you also got to, and this is, I'm going to say I'm out on a limb on this. 1987, Video Music Awards, John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, 2 acoustic guitars, Wanted Dead or Alive. There's your birth of MTV Unplugged. MTV had never thought to do that show until that performance, and it became such a heavily requested performance that it was on Dial MTV from people calling in requesting to see it. And that's when they said, fuck it, we need to do a half-hour all-acoustic show and get people who normally never touch acoustic guitars to come in here and do it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want
to... That's an interesting point, because, I mean, there were performances that I remember I had to record on my VCR The Cure on Unplugged, and then figure out a way to hook up all this stuff that my dad had bought, the VCR and the tape recorder and all this shit. I had to hook it up so I could record the audio off the VCR into the tape machine. Yep. So that I could have a copy of that Unplugged performance to listen to, the same way I had all my other Cure albums.
Yep.
There was plenty of that. I mean, even before they actually caught on to the fact that they could release those as performances, I think it wasn't until the I think maybe
Eric Clapton's
one. Oh, it was the Clapton one was the big one. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was the big one.
The 3 shows that went big right around the same time was Eric Clapton, the hip hop show they had where LL Cool J did Mama Said Knock You Out with a full band, which
I loved.
I loved it, but Aaron, go back and watch the video now, and you're going to want to slap somebody for being as out of tune as they are. That's just all. It's like, is Keith Richards in this band? Someone tune that fucking guitar.
Well, we have the roots now, so it's kind of hard to go back and look at, and criticize.
And then, oh shit, what was the other? It was an early.
Carey.
Yes, thank you. Because they released albums of all 3 of those.
Yeah. By
the time Nirvana's Unplugged album come out, I think Clapton had won like every Grammy in the world that year for his Unplugged album, because I was about to say something pretty bad about his kid, but whatever.
What's the Dead Kid album?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so Bon Jovi, I get the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is you're going to have the draw, the people that are popular. You got to have them in there. And obviously they haven't limited it to just rock and roll. But I mean, I know every year we do this, but there's just some glaring, really head scratchers in there. You have Tupac in there, but you don't have Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
The Cure aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean,
isn't Dr. Dre in as part of NWA?
Yeah, probably. I guess. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. NWA's in there. But yeah, it's just, and you listen to this other podcast, listen to them talk about it. They were like, when it first started, it was easy because you had 35, 40 years of rock and roll to cherry pick the best from. So the first 5-10 years of inducting people was just, we got too many people to induct. Now it's starting, the herd's starting to thin. And it's like, yeah, but, you got Radiohead. How the fuck are they not in? They get passed over? I mean, all right. In this podcast they were talking about, they were like, there's a lot of politics behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the bands that get in so late. I mean, the Cars, obviously, dude, their first album was 40-some years ago. Why shouldn't they have been in before now?
Took Black Sabbath till 2006.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about bands that are just getting in, Moody Blues, their first album was mid-'60s? So, I mean, overall, I look at it like this. It's the same as every year. It's like, I just want to see the performances, maybe the acceptance speeches, and then I'll forget about it until this time next year when they introduce the next class.
Right.
I mean, because really,
it ultimately doesn't matter.
Does it? If you've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, it's cool to go and check out all the shit. I mean, when I went, you walked in and there was Muddy Waters Telly right there. I mean, right as you walked in, and I walked up and I'm looking at it through like, an inch of glass, and I can see a hair stuck in one of the springs on the Telly's fucking bridge. And I'm like, that's Muddy Waters. Yeah, that got pulled off of Muddy Waters' hand while he was playing this fucking Telly. That's fucking crazy. But that's music nerd shit. To me, the whole pageantry of the show and the induction it's always been about the performances and stuff. I mean, are the Cars even still together?
They're not even all still alive.
Yeah.
Benjamin Orr died like fucking 15 years ago.
Okay, I knew I had a feeling one of them died, but yeah, that was the bass player, right? Dude who was also the lead singer?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to kind of put a damper on that. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just it seems kind of like the Cars, Dire Straits. I like both those bands. I hate to admit this. Bon Jovi does have a few songs I don't mind, but listening back to songs being played, wow, a lot of that shit's dated. That 80s production really locked everything into what decade that shit was released in. Yeah. And I mean, the others is just like, Nina Simone and Rosetta Tharpe, they're both dead. So it's not like you're going to see them perform. So
yeah, I think it's an interesting and fun thing to track if you're a fan of music or a musician or anything like that. But yeah, there's a general understanding of it. Doesn't really mean anything.
Well, yeah, and I mean especially,
it doesn't even really mean anything for the bands themselves. Like, do you sell more records because you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, it might be an opportunity for you to get out there and perform and get your name out there where you wouldn't get any traction before because you're just an old act. But
yeah, I don't think if you're a Bon Jovi fan right now, you're not going to go out and rebuy their entire discography because they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
Like, I gotta get the new. If you have all the CDs and you have all the digital downloads, what the fuck more do you need? So that's me assuming Bon Jovi fans aren't into vinyl. So because I just don't see a lot of
that. Not outside that Young Guns picture disc.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, yeah. Now, does that mean that song is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or is that just Bon Jovi by himself?
I don't know.
That makes me wonder because you know who played guitar on that Blaze of Glory song, don't you?
No.
Jeff Beck.
Oh, okay.
And it makes me wonder if Jeff Beck had a coke habit that he somehow hid from the public real well in the late 80s, because why the fuck else would he even be in the same studio as John Bon Jovi? It makes no sense.
Units, them performance royalties.
I guess, man.
Is Jeff Beck trying to be relevant in 1992?
Here's the thing. Jeff Beck's one of those people that he's like Primus. You go to his shows, it's all guys, mostly music nerds. He's never going to starve from lack of places to play. He's just not playing, 20,000 seat arenas. He's playing, 2,000 seat fucking halls and theaters at best. So
Jeff Beck was the guitar player all the dudes teaching us guitar when we were coming up loved.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, don't get it twisted. I had a few of his albums and was like, tried for a split second to fuck around with a floating trem and finger picking, and was like, this ain't for me.
That is way too much work.
Jeff's Beck intonation, that motherfucker has perfect pitch in his head.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's people that go, I got perfect pitch, and then you put them to the test, and you're like, no, you don't. Jeff Beck does. I'm not Jeff Beck, so
I'm not a Jeff Beck fan music wise, but his influence is undeniable. I found after going through many different styles of picks, my one go-to pick for playing any stringed instrument, if I need a pick, is the Jeff Beck pick, which is a Jazz 3 little nubby red guy.
Oh, Jesus, you're going back to the blow-by-blow days when he used the pick. Like, I don't think he's used the pick since the 80s now.
Yeah, no, I know. I know that he does the finger style now.
I mean, even if you're not a guitar player, look up a recent video of Jeff Beck and watch his right hand when he's playing.
Yeah.
And it looks completely different than 99.9% of other electric guitar players' right hand when they play.
Yeah, it's all bunched together.
Yeah, and he keeps the trem arm hooked in his pinky, and he can go up a step and a half, and he can go down a step and a half with his trem, and he's constantly using volume swells while holding the trem arm with his pinky. I mean, it's
right.
It's some otherworldly shit, really.
I think that's you probably got that from bluegrass players. The claw technique for playing banjo.
Oh,
where I mean, they just fucking put their hand in a position, and all that is all from the wrist. They're just rocking that hand in that one position back and forth to hit the strings.
Yeah, and he did put out a tribute album to he was a scuffle. Was that what they called it in Britain?
Skiffle,
yeah. And then it had some bluegrass flavor in it.
It was like high energy folk.
Yeah.
Like up-tempo folk with the backbeat.
Yeah. And he put some bluegrass stuff on there too, and I was like, whoa, all right. It just made me go, why do I even bother with this fucking thing? Like there's guys that are so good they make me want to go home and practice, and there's guys that are so good they make me want to go home and just give my guitar away and go, here, just take it.
Yeah.
And even though I'm not a huge Beck fan, I put him in the I'll never be able to do that. Just take this thing and get it away from me.
All right, on that note, we gotta wrap this bitch up. It's been the week of like 4-hour podcasts, me and Rich. Quite the week. So we'll just keep it short when we wrap it up here, and we'll thank everybody who's been listening. Figured out we got a bigger audience than we thought. So thanks to everybody who's been listening, downloading, all that stuff. Follow us on Twitter at @unregimentedpod. You can email the show unregimented@christophermedia.net. Like and share us on Facebook. Catch you next week.
See?
All right. Later, guys.
Or what does that mean?
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
New Extra Charge Hot and Iced Coffee from Dunkin' is made with 20% extra caffeine from green coffee extract, because we could all use a little extra this year. Whether that's an extra boost, some extra boldness, or the drive to go the extra mile. We're extra ready for whatever comes our way, and extra excited to take it on. Let's get it done with a medium extra charge coffee from Dunkin' for $2 with 20% more caffeine. And pair it with snackable stuffed bagel minis for an added all-day boost. Order ahead on the Dunkin' app. America runs on Dunkin'. Participation may vary. Limited time offer.
This week at Macy's, it's time for a winter refresh with 25 to 50% off clearance plus an extra 20% off with your coupon or Macy's card. Or shop specials like sterling silver jewelry sets, now 70% off. Grab new jeans for the kids with 50% off Junior's denim. And Martha Stewart collection flannel bedding, accessories, and more, 65% off. Now at Macy's. Plus, Star Rewards members can earn on every purchase except gift card services and fees. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.